Good morning. Today is December 7th. This is the regular meeting of the Nags Head Board of Commissioners. We're going to call the meeting to order. And our prayer this morning will be provided by Pastor Rick Lawrence.
Mayor, before I pray, I'd like for us all to take a moment of silence right now to remember that it is Pearl Harbor Day, and to, in a moment of silence, remember those who lost their lives on that day and on the 70th anniversary of that day that lives in infamy. Would you join me in that, please? Heavenly Father, we gather here today because there is business to tend to that's important to this town and the residents of the town and those who serve this town. My prayer is for wisdom and guidance for our commissioners as they deal with all these different issues in the business, and I lift them up to you in prayer. Also, thank you, God, for this season of the year as we stop and get busy doing other things, but also, Lord, we remember the fact that you showed us how much you loved us on Christmas, and so we thank you for that, for the spirit of the time. And we pray for good things today, and we thank you, God. We do want to thank those men and women who served our country 70 years ago, and we, especially the few that survive, we lift them up to you today and pray that they'll be honored. In Christ's name I pray, amen.
Amen. If you'll join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item this morning is reorganization of the board. And Carolyn Boris has our report.
Good morning. As a result of the November 8th, 2011 election, there were 664 ballots cast with 27.55% percentage of registered voter turnout. For the position of commissioner, Susie Walters received 436 votes, Renee Cahoon received 339 votes, John Ratzenberger received 293 votes, and John Mascaro received 90 votes. Officially elected as commissioner were Susie Walters and Renee Cahoon. I will be glad to swear in both of them now. Let's start with Susie.
Discharge the duties imposed upon me
As Commissioner of the Town of Nags Head,
as Commissioner of the Town of Nags Head,
according to law, so help me God.
according to law, so help me God.
Congratulations.
entertain a motion for the nomination for Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Douglas Romali as Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am. We have a nomination. Any other nominations? Second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor of Doug Romali as Mayor Pro Tem, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Congratulations, Mayor.
Thank you.
I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Douglas Romali, do solemnly swear,
that having been duly elected Mayor Pro Tem
as being duly elected Mayor Pro Tem
by the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Nags Head
by the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Nags Head,
at an official meeting held on December 7th, 2011,
official meeting held on December 7th, 2011,
I will support and maintain
support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith.
and that I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties imposed upon me
discharge the duties imposed upon me
as Mayor Pro Tem of the Town of Nags Head,
as Mayor Pro Tem of the Town of Nags Head,
according to law, so help me God.
according to laws of North Carolina.
Congratulations.
A hearty congratulations to all of our newly sworn folks. I do have a note here that asks for a brief recess for photos. It's going to be a very brief recess, so take your photos quickly, and we'll be right back. Thank you for your indulgence on that brief recess. We're going to come back to order. Our next item is the adoption of our agenda.
Move to adopt as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Our next item is audience response. This is the time that we set aside for the public to come and speak before the board. If you will, come to the podium and give us your name and your address, and we will listen carefully. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. I'm not a resident of Nags Head, but I do work in the town and own residential property and volunteer with the fire department. So I hope you'll allow me to speak for a moment on an issue that's important to me. If not, I understand.
Speak away.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
thank you. I want to address this morning an issue that's coming before the commissioners, and I want to ask you to reject a recommendation that's coming to you from the planning board regarding digital and LED signage. Rather than, as the recommendation as I've read it says, limiting such future signs to currently what some banks have with temperature and time that essentially says nothing pertinent to people, I would encourage the planning board to come back with a different kind of regulation that perhaps allows signage that is digital in nature, that is tastefully done, as I think is represented by the Outer Banks Hospital sign. I don't think anybody drives by that and sees that as an eyesore. I think it gives information that's good for the public, displaying services that they offer and different things, classes, whatever it might be, and it's done in such a way that it's not obtrusive. I think by eliminating all such signs, I don't think we're showing that we're a very forward-thinking community, but with the technology that's available, but we're instead limiting and saying, no, we want all your signs to be just as they were before the days of Thomas Edison. So I would encourage you to as you discuss that, to realize that it's unlikely that every business now, if you permit such signs, that they're going to spring up everywhere because they're cost prohibitive, and I don't think that's going to happen. But if they're done in the way that the Outer Banks Hospital sign is done, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I think it's an attractive sign, and I hope that you'll reconsider and ask them to come back later with something different. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Bob Muller. I am a resident of the town. Congratulations, Commissioner Cahoon and Walters. Thank you all for your service. Very briefly, I would ask the board to adopt a policy to budget adequate funds to televise candidates' forums during the town's election cycle. For the last 2 cycles, small groups of citizens have come together to pay the $400 to get it taped. It's scrambled, and there's always been a risk that that would not happen. The town in the past has paid for it, and I hope the town will adopt a policy to include that amount in the budget for televising meetings and undertake to make sure that the citizens have the opportunity to see their candidates at that forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Good morning. I'm Lois Williams, and I work for the ownership of the Outer Banks Mall. We had been working with Kim Allen, who'd been very helpful to us in creating an LED sign for the Outer Banks Mall. This is my first time working for a landlord, and I've always been a tenant and worked for several national tenants, and signage is so important to tenants. And I started with the landlord 2 years ago, and right at the time down here that tenants were really suffering because of the economy. We've done a lot of things to support the tenants, and especially the small tenants. We've given rent concessions. We've worked to improve the Outer Banks Mall, to improve the look. We brought in Tuesday morning into a big space, and we brought them in at a loss to the landlord. Their rent doesn't pay for the improvements we had to make. And the LED sign was the very next improvement we had planned. And this we hoped would help the small tenants who have limited visibility, limited road signage. We want to help them survive, and so the landlord's willing to spend, it's twice what a regular sign would cost. And we're going to do it professionally. We wanted to do it attractively, adhere to all the rules, but so that each tenant could be represented and it could have their name up to bring more people in. And we just feel like the higher the sales they can generate, the more people we can get into the shopping center, the more taxes they're going to pay, and the stronger the economy is going to be. LED is the future. I agree that it's, all in the eye of the beholder. But we do want to do something that's going to help these tenants and help them stay. We don't have a lot of vacancies left, so I'm interested, of course, in bringing new tenants in. But I'm really here to represent those tenants and hope that we can still do this sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Good morning. My name is Annette Ratzenberger. I live at 119 Sea-Watch Court in Village. First of all, let me say congratulations to Susie and Renee on their election, and to Doug as Mayor Pro Tem. With me is Melvin Stone.
I'm Melvin Stone at 6005 North Shore Court in the Village of Nags Head.
We are both members of the Village of Nags Head Property Owners Association Board of Directors. And we're here today to read you a letter from the Board of Directions that deals with your agenda item number 12, and where you address the zoning ordinance text amendment 48-869. I understand that is not, the item on the agenda is not a public hearing, so that this is the appropriate time for us to speak. Okay. To the Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners, in regards to the sunset provision pertaining to beach rentals at the Village of Nags Head Property Owners Association private beach access. Dear Mayor, Oaks, and Commissioners, at your April 6, 2011 Board of Commissioners meeting, you approved the Village of Nags Head Property Owners Association to offer a beach chair and umbrella rental service out of their privately owned access located at 4929 South Virginia Dare Trail. Providing this service allowed our association to offer an added amenity to our owners and guests, and also helped with the security at this location by maintaining a regular presence. We feel that the summer went well, and the operation of the rental service ran smoothly. To our knowledge, there have been no violations or issues reported to the town regarding this service at our private beach access. Since the sunset provision was put in place at the time of this ordinance was approved, the Board of Directors is requesting that you please re-adopt this ordinance to allow the rentals of beach chairs and umbrellas at the Village Nags Head Property Owners Association privately owned beach access to continue. On behalf of the Village Nags Head Property Owners Association Board of Directors, thank you in advance for your time and consideration. We prepared this letter, and then on Monday, we saw the staff recommendation. And we have a problem with the wording in particular of the recommendation. One part of the recommendation where they're explaining why they're advising not to continue with this service, it says, though few problems were experienced with the operation of the Village in Nags Head, et cetera, et cetera. The problem with that is that when it says though few problems, that implies there were problems. There were no violations reported to us. On Monday of this week, the board asked our assistant to get with town staff, find out if there were violations, and if so, what they were and why they weren't reported to us, et cetera. On Monday, our assistant did speak with Ms. Teague, planning director, and we were told at that time there were no violations. So I want to be sure that before you go into your deliberations, you re-verify that and you know that there are no violations at our beach access. Thank you.
Good morning. Thomas Musica, Beach Cabana Services, and I'm one of the vendors who provides the services on the beach for the town of Nags Head. I was concerned also when I had a look at what the staff recommendation was. I feel like that I tried to comply with everything that was asked of me. I actually stopped by several times to speak with actually Ms. Wyatt on the planning board, and she's been incredible. She's been very educational, and I tried to comply with everything I asked her. I said, hey, was there any problems that through my service individually that had arose? She at that time said, no, not really. She did have a couple little concerns to make sure that I could continue to comply, and I did whatever was asked of me. And I would like to ask for maybe the opportunity to be able to sit down and review with your staff again and see if there's any options that we can pursue to make this continue to work. We had a good season. A lot of people liked it. And now that we've educated these guests, next year I'm sure they'll be expecting this service. And I just hope that we can continue to provide it. And thank you for the opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Music. Anybody else that would like to come before us in public comment? Anybody at all? Seeing none, we're going to close our public comment period. And obviously, we'll be addressing the Village of Nags Head piece and the hotel piece later in our meeting. Our next item is the presentation of the 2011 Employee of the Year Award. Now, y'all, I want you to know, these are not folks that the Board of Commissioners picks out. These employees are chosen by their peers, which to me means a lot more. We had the following nominations for the Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award for 2011. And if you'll come up here and stand when I call your name, and we'll get everybody up at once. John Wilkinson for the Fire Department. Laura Gilreath for the Police Department. Now bear with me a little bit. I only do this once a year, so it's not quite natural. Thank you very much. read the certificate of appreciation. The Town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners is presenting this certificate of appreciation to John Wilkinson in recognition of his nomination for the Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award for 2011. John is hereby recognized for his dedication, enthusiasm, and excellent work performance during the past year. The Board of Commissioners joins with the citizens of Nags Head in expressing its sincere appreciation for a job well done and extends its congratulations on his nomination. In witness thereof, the Nags Head Board of Commissioners has caused this certificate to be signed the 7th day of December, 2011 by its mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And if you will stay up here, Mr. Stand, Ms. Chloe. I have the same certificate for you, if you don't mind. I'm not going to read them. Nice job. Todd Workman with Public Works. Come here and turn around so the audience can see. We see you. We want to see you, but. Christy Bliven with Administrative Services. Roberta Thuman with the Town Manager's Office. And Kelly Wyatt with Planning and Development. If we can give our employees a round of applause. I think this is one of the more difficult tasks the Board of Commissioners faces every year because we do have such a wealth of good staff and folks that have worked with the town for a long time. Let's see. Everyone's following my script. I didn't do as well on my script as I should have. Again, it's these folks that are the core of the town, and we're very much a service business, and our staff are the ones that provide the service to the townspeople. With that said, we're going to Cliff, stop me if I'm doing anything wrong, okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And it's my pleasure to present a very nice plaque. The Earl Murray Jr. Employee of the Year Award is presented to Roberta Thuman. Well, it is quite an honor to be nominated for this award, and quite an honor to win it. Roberta, we really appreciate the hundreds or thousands of hours that you spent answering a lot of public information questions, and you've done well, and it reflected well on the town.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all. We're going to have another brief recess for photos. We're going to come back into session. Our next item is recognition of employees with years of service. Our first item, Chief Zor.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem. It's a privilege for me today to introduce firefighter Josh Ball to Fire Department service. He started on November 21st. Josh tells me he is realizing his lifelong dream by becoming involved in a career fire department that runs a lot of calls, and we're pleased to welcome such a positive and talented person on board. Josh was born in Poughkeepsie, New York, and he moved to the town of Southern Shores when he was 13 years old. After graduating from First Flight High School in 2006, Josh attended the Regional Dare County Fire Academy and achieved his North Carolina Firefighter II and North Carolina EMT certification. Josh has been an active member in Duck Fire Department for 6 years, and he was recently promoted to Master Firefighter in 2011, which is quite an honor. Aside from the fire service, Josh likes to spend time with his family and go fishing with his dad. As he looks towards the future, Josh anticipates learning more about fire investigations, meeting fire officer certification qualifications, and managing hazardous materials incidents. I hope we don't have any of those, Josh. Josh is a hard worker, is very excited to begin his professional life with the fire department, and is eager to serve the citizens of the town of Nags Head. We're pleased to have him on the Nags Head team. Josh.
Welcome aboard, Josh. You may be the first graduate of First Flight High School to be a Nags Head firefighter. Oh, thank you. I'm not sure about that. I think it's probably a true statement. Good luck. Thanks. Ralph?
Good morning. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Joe Donsky. Joe has become a water services technician for the town. Joe was born in Florida. He then, with his family, moved to Currituck. Joe attended Currituck High School and graduated from Currituck High School. After graduating from high school, Joe attended COA and then East Carolina to study criminal justice. He decided he didn't want to be a police officer, so he went into the water services field. He worked for the town of Kill Devil Hills and also Manio, and I guess he seen his errors of his ways, and he came to work for the town of Nags Head. Joe has a 10-month-old son named Joseph. His hobbies are music, which he likes to play at least an hour a day, and also to watch the NFL. That's his only downfall, that we found that his favorite team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. With that said, I'd like to introduce Joe Donsky.
Morning, Joe. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good luck.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Ogden?
I have a real privilege of presenting Kim Kinney to the board for recognition on her anniversary of her 20 years of service to the town of Nags Head. Kim started November 16th, 1991. She was a graduate of Lehigh University. When I look back at her resume when she applied for the job, and her professional objective on her resume was to obtain a challenging position utilizing my accounting background, analytical skills, and problem-solving abilities, and I think she's achieved that and is working very hard on that every single day. She started with us as Director of Accounting and Collections. 1996, she was promoted to Deputy Finance Officer. Almost 7 years ago, well, 7 years ago yesterday, she was appointed the Acting Finance Officer, and on July 1st, 2005, she became the town's Finance Officer. When we got her, she was a CPA. Since then, she has received her certification as a North Carolina Finance Officer in 2008, which is awarded by the North Carolina Public Finance Officers Association and the North Carolina Association of County Finance Officers. In 2009, she became a graduate of the Municipal Administration course from School of Government at UNC Chapel Hill. In 2010, she received her, became a certified budget and evaluation officer, which is achieved through the North Carolina Local Government and Budget Association. But all these are the facts about Kim. All of these are the things that you know, we can write down on paper and you can get out of a personnel file. But I think it goes without saying, and I can't adequately put into words how much I appreciate what Kim does. She has 20 years of an extremely stressful position. She carries a lot of weight on her shoulders. This board in this town has put some pretty strong expectations on fiscal responsibility and financial accountability, and Kim carries that stick. Sometimes it's a bat. She carries it, and she does it well, and she has kept this town and our finances in wonderful shape. She is, without a question, my right hand and my left hand, and that portion of my brain that deals with numbers is standing right here beside me. And I greatly appreciate all you do for this town, all you've done, and I look forward to the next 20 years of doing this together. So, Kim Kinney.
Ms. Kinney, come forward, please. Wow, 20 years. You have a very nice. It does go fast, doesn't it? This certificate of recognition is presented to Kim Kinney upon the occasion of her 20th anniversary. On November 16, 1991, Kim began employment with the town of Nags Head. This certificate is awarded as a tribute to her devoted and faithful service over the past 20 years. Kim's committed loyalty to her duties as finance officer has had a lasting, valuable effect on the well-being of the town and its citizens, and for this, she deserves recognition. The town of Nags Head Board of Commissioners expresses their genuine respect and appreciation for her outstanding performance of duty in the past and extends its best wishes for continued success and many more productive years with the town. Kim, thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. You got to have the numbers straight first. And you do wonderfully. Thank you. Thanks for the 20 years. Does it seem like it? Great job.
Now I'd like to ask you to join me in recognizing an employee that retired last week from the Department of Admin Services, and to recognize her contribution to the department and the town, and to wish her well in a long and happy, healthy retirement, and that would be Joanne Clark.
Joanne, come on forward, please, ma'am. Got a little bit of limelight. The Nags Head Board of Commissioners has caused to be entered this date into the official record of the town of Nags Head, North Carolina, a certificate honoring Joanne Clark. This certificate of appreciation is presented to Joanne on the occasion of her retirement and is in gratitude for her loyal and dedicated service as a member of the town of Nags Head team from June 2003 through November 2011 in several capacities, but primarily as senior accounting technician. Joanne's faithful service to the people and visitors of the town of Nags Head will be sorely missed. Joanne's conscientiousness and attention to detail defined her work ethic and will be hard to replace. The Nags Head Board of Commissioners appreciates all that Joanne has done for the town in her years working with the town's Administrative Services Department and wishes her the very best. In witness thereof, the Nags Head Board of Commissioners has caused this certificate to be signed the 7th day of December 2011 by its mayor. Ms. Clark, thank you very much. Hope you enjoy retirement. Have some wonderful things to do. I've always heard people get busier in retirement. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Next item this morning is the consent agenda.
Move to adopt as presented.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. And our next item is a public hearing to consider adoption of zoning ordinance text amendments to various town code sections to permit the installation of concealed building mounted antenna as a conditional use.
Good morning, Mayor Commissioners. The text amendment you have before you is similar to one that the board reviewed in March of 2010. At that time, the board denied it. In August of 2010, the town attorney, Ben Gallup, informed the town that we may be in violation of numerous sections of the Wireless Act and advised us to revamp our ordinance regarding wireless communication facilities. That letter was attached to your staff report as well. In an October 25th, 2011 email from Lisa Murphy, who represents Sprintcom, she informed staff that since our ordinance does not allow concealed wireless antennas, that they were going to move forward with applying for a minor communication tower permit at the Comfort Inn site, although their preference is to install a concealed antenna on top of the building. The text amendment you have before you would allow wireless facilities on existing buildings such as existing towers, buildings, utility poles, and water tanks. It also allows of concealed building-mounted antennas as a conditional use in the CR and C2 districts. And those would have to be concealed by faux dormers or some other type of architectural feature. It also requires that the concealed building-mounted antenna may not exceed 15 feet above the roof line, and it has to be located in a way that it's not visible from the ground. Staff received additional input from Ms. Murphy regarding the text amendment, but this was after the planning board reviewed it, so the planning board has not had a chance to review her comments. She suggested that we add a definition for roof line, and that's in the second ordinance up there, as well as allowing the concealed mounted antennas that are flush with the roof line or below it as a permitted use instead of a conditional use in the CR and C2 districts. At their November 15th meeting, the planning board voted unanimously to recommend initiation of this text amendment, but as I said, they have not reviewed Ms. Murphy's comments after they, about the roof line. Staff recommends adoption of the ordinance with Ms. Murphy's comments. We think they're more effective with the roof line addition in there. And we maintain that it is in keeping with the Nags Head architecture from the vision statement of the land use plan by requiring the faux dormers or other architectural features. I'm available for any questions, and Ms. Murphy is here as well if you have any questions regarding the concealed building mounted antennas.
Does the board have any questions for Ms. Welsh? Yes, Ms. Cahoon.
Angela, this question just occurred to me in looking at the examples that were given, and one was an antenna concealed by a brick facade.
Mm-hmm.
Does that brick facade also have to meet the setback requirements if the building is right on the setback line?
I would say yes.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, and that has not come up yet. I want to bring up Kelly Wyatt, who's our zoning administrator for commercial businesses, and ask her how setback is normally measured from the building. Is it at the footprint?
There are some exclusions that we have listed right now. The exclusions are predominantly for residential, and that is open wood slatted landings and stairs. In terms of encroachments for commercial, we don't have any listed currently. So if it was the board's desire to include the concealment apparatus as a encroachment, that would need to be an action taken by the board, because currently the board does not list any encroachments for commercial.
So you've included the setback all the way up airspace, so you don't have any cantilever types of architectural features that are allowed in the setback generally. So we would actually have to add that to the ordinance, or they would have to design it in such a way so that it doesn't encroach. That's a very good question.
All right, other questions for Ms. Welsh? Anybody at all?
This may be more for Ms. Murphy, but is it, I mean, are the designs typically straight up and down, or do they typically encroach into that airspace?
I can have her answer that.
Yes, please.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Lisa Murphy, for the record, and I'm here today on behalf of Sprintcom, who, as you all know, trades as Sprint. And they are a wireless carrier licensed to provide wireless services throughout the U.S. and in North Carolina. You've got some photographs that were in the staff report, and then there were some additional photos that I provided. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult to see, but this is an example. On the left-hand side, you'll see at the corner of the building, there you go, where the PowerPointer works much better, thank you. At the corner of the building, you'll see where the antenna is really flush to the building below the roof line, but it's been painted so it really matches the color of the building. The other architectural feature is in the next slide, which is this example here. In this case, the antennas are behind a faux, as you described it, sort of, in this case it's not brick, but a faux enclosure. And what it is an opaque material that's painted and texturized to look like the rest of the building, but it actually is opaque so that it allows the radio emissions to go through and to be received. But otherwise, it really conceals it so that the antennas are not visible. And in either case, they don't stick out more than, 6 or 8 inches from the building. So we wouldn't be talking about the type of antennas that you see on a tower where they're sticking out 3 or 4 feet from the structure itself. These are really flush with the building, and then the enclosure is just used to conceal them so you don't really notice anything but an architectural feature. So I can't imagine a scenario really where they would be sticking out from the building enough to create an encroachment where you were already meeting the property setback.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do want to say that I really appreciate staff working with us. Wherever and whenever possible, all of the carriers really look to existing towers and tall structures to hang their antennas. Typically, it's the cheapest, fastest way to provide service to their customers. In this case, we had a little bit of a challenge. Nobody wants to build a tower, and a solution that allows carriers to use existing tall structures really makes the most sense, I think, for everybody in the community. I'm happy to answer any other questions, and we really do appreciate your time on this.
Are there any questions for Ms. Murphy?
Are these strictly cell tower sites?
Well, they're wireless antennas, so I'm not sure what you're defining as cell tower, but it's voice.
Are they exterior transmissions or just interior for the building?
Oh no, they would be exterior, right? Mm-hmm.
Because I feel sorry for the engineers that engineered that brick facade that you have. Here's to conceal an antenna. That's about the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I'm sure that's in a city somewhere or another, because it looks like it's on a not this one. These are nice. These are the one that you have here on this. It's in the packet. It's in our packet. It's listed as antenna concealed by brick facade. You just had that up there.
There it is.
You mean, I think you had one for, there's that one.
That's the one. That's the one I'm talking about.
Well, and sometimes what they'll do is, it depends on the design of the building, and for this one, you can't really get a sense of, it looks like an industrial structure. You can't get a sense of the whole building and what's around it. The other way you can do this, and I think further down you have a picture where you actually there you go, that one, where you set the antennas on the top of the building, and then in this one you can see the brick.
That one's fine.
Brick facade.
Stuff that'll fall on you.
Mm-hmm. And the next one shows you how that one, so that's the back side of that, and that would be the front side. But really, they're attached to the building. They have to meet all of your, building code requirements for hurricane, ice, you name it. Believe it or not, the wireless industry is one of the most heavily regulated industries because they have to comply with all of the federal NEPA requirements, historic resources, and then they have to, of course, comply with all of the local requirements. So they're much easier to build a gas station than it is to put up some antennas, believe it or not.
Other questions for Ms. Murphy? Anything at all? Anything further that you wish to present, Ms. Murphy?
No, again, I thank you, and I appreciate staff, especially Elizabeth Teague, getting us involved and helping us work through a solution that makes sense. Thank you.
Does the board have any further questions for staff at this point? If not, is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on this proposed ordinance text amendment? If so, this is your opportunity to do so. No one at all? Is there any comment from the planning board on this matter? If not, does the board wish to receive any further information about this matter before it begins its deliberations? If not, this will conclude the public hearing on this matter, and the board may begin its deliberations.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion that we adopt this ordinance amendment as presented, allowing wireless communication transmission antennas.
Are you comfortable with the setback concern that you mentioned?
I'm comfortable. If it becomes an issue, I feel like staff will bring us something back. But as presented, I think it would be fine.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I have one question. Are we also including the coverage for 360 degrees in this? As was recommended, planning board recommended that it not be visible 360 degrees as opposed to some of the examples which, is open to the back and you can see it from perhaps, north or south.
Did staff's recommendation include the 360-degree
Staff-
prohibition?
But hers did not.
Yes, the planning board in their minutes made a specific request in their discussion that it be included 360 degrees. The version of the ordinance that went to Ms. Murphy for her comment was sent to her prior to us being able to incorporate all the planning board comments. And so what I would recommend is adoption of the text ordinance version that includes Ms. Murphy's comments plus the provision of the 360 degrees that the planning board was concerned about. You'll see that in your attachments, it's in the planning board text amendment, but it was not in Ms. Murphy's text amendment, and that's because we hadn't sent her the final version of that. So we apologize for that.
So is that
I'm comfortable.
your intent?
I'm comfortable with that. That'll be fine. My motion will include the comments that's made by Ms. Teague.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Statement of consistency
Motion to adopt statement of consistency.
is a statement of consistency with our land use plan, that the ordinance that we just adopted is consistent with that. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously on the statement of consistency. Our next item is number 11, a public hearing to consider adoption of zoning ordinance text amendments to the Town Code Section 48-8, definitions in Town Code Section 48-324, prohibiting LED and digital signage.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning,
Mayor
sir.
Pro Tem, Commissioners. The first digital sign in town was allowed in 2003. At that time, the technology was basically the same as time temperature displays, white on black, nothing fancy. And since 2003, I don't know how many times I brought up to Tim Wilson that we need to put real written parameters on these signs. Nothing went forward. Bruce Sports came back as interim. That was one of my first items. He said, save it for the new director. We have a new director. But recognizing the increasing interest in digital signs and the emerging technology, the planning board, the November planning board heard the text amendment, and the planning board recommended that all types of digital signage, including those that just indicated time and temperature, be prohibited. Staff recommendation, staff recommends that the attached amendment and statement of consistency. If you look at the current ordinance between sign regulations and lighting regulations, there's enough to prohibit signs as is, but I think it's best if we just spell it out. The town currently allows, for signs, currently allows walls, freestanding, flag, banner, sandwich signs, and roof signs. There's nothing for digital signs. The current lighting ordinance regulates internally and externally illuminated signs. Externally illuminated signs, they're easy. You put a light meter to the surface of the sign and read the number of foot candles. The way we regulate internally illuminated signs is the distance between the fluorescent tubes that typically light those signs. With a digital sign, the sign surface itself is essentially the light source. That reading, the light level involved with digital signs, the unit of measurement is called a nit, and the difference between 1,000 nits and 5,000 nits and 10,000 nits, I can't tell you. I do know that the Sunoco canopy and the duck-through canopy is illuminated by an array of digital lights inside 4 to 6 fixtures, and that reads 15-foot candles underneath the canopy, 16 feet down. Kitty Hawk has prohibited digital signs. The city of Virginia Beach tried several incarnations of text amendments. There was no consensus as to any one version being worth adopting, so the city of Virginia Beach has adopted digital signs. Of the elements that you could control would be brightness, size of the sign, the colors, text, or size of the text, and also when it comes to brightness, you could regulate daytime levels of light as well as nighttime levels of light. The pros for these types of signs is, of course, it's convenient. There's a remote programming is easy to do, and also in this windy environment, you don't have letters blowing off signs into the street, losing letters, numbers, etc. In the audience, I invited Carolina Signs and Adlight Signs to appear today. I see an unfamiliar face. That must be Steve Howington. If you have any questions between me and Elizabeth and Steve, I think they can be answered.
Any questions for Mr. Allen? Oh, Ms. Cahoon.
Sorry, I've got. Kim, in reading the planning board minutes, you stated that either prohibit or put further regulation on it or parameters on them.
Right.
When you said that about parameters, in what way were you reflecting that comment?
The items that I mentioned as far as maximum size, maximum brightness, maximum text size, multicolor, single color, only allowing white on black. I mean, there's a number of ways to put some kind of control on these signs.
Thank you.
Ms. Walters?
Did you say that Virginia Beach voted to allow digital signs or prohibit?
Prohibit.
Thank you.
I think that was last year.
Mayor Oaks?
Number C, under signs and outdoor advertising structures, prohibited signs, says, no sign, business sign, or outdoor advertising structure shall be erected which contains, employs, or utilizes lights or lighting which rotates, flashes, moves, or alternates except that time and temperature displays without electronic advertising matter permitted but must be included in computing allowable signage. Continuous printout running or ticker tape type message panels or signs are prohibited. This seems like it allows signs that are static in display, but not something that changes every few minutes. Do you think this doesn't protect us adequately, and why would this not protect us adequately from these type of signs?
Why would that?
Yes, sir.
What's before you would address static signs.
Right. So what's before us would take out the time and temperature, or there's one across the street from my building, Resort Realty has one.
Correct. What went to the planning board was an allowance for time, temperature, and what came out of the planning board was everything.
So we're not making a distinction between the marquee type signs where you put up the letters versus just having electronic letters up there. We're saying if it's lights, we don't want it, or the ordinance says if it's lights, we don't want it. Like the East Carolina Bank couldn't have their time and temperature thing.
Correct.
Okay.
So basically, if we adopt this, it makes what's existing already non-conforming.
Correct.
Further questions? Anything further from staff on this proposed text amendment at this time? Does any member of the public wish to comment on this proposed text amendment? If so, this is your opportunity to do so. Yes, if you would please approach the podium and tell us again who you are, and you may address your comments to the Board of Commissioners.
Good morning. Lois Williams with the Outer Banks Mall. And again, I know I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I've already said, but, you know, we're perfectly willing to comply with the ordinance. We had already agreed not to do the running letters. We would have remotely, what we had worked out is we would remotely have the ability to change the sign once a day, and only once a day. You know, just to put up Merry Christmas, or to put up the cottage shop is having a sale today, or, you know, come enjoy a New York bagel. New York Bagels is one of our smaller tenants. They're 600 square feet, so they struggle. And we want every tenant to have the ability to put something special to them on this board. But absolutely, we want to comply with, you know, what the city wants, but we would really like the opportunity to do this.
Further comments from the public? Yes, sir, you may address your, again, please tell us who you are and address your comments to the board.
Okay, I'm Steve Howington with Carolina Signs and Service. I represent Rosemeyer Corporation, and I'd like to just add that the digital signs would be an effective way for the businesses to advertise their business during this bad economy, and it would be a attractive way for the shopping center to add to the already upgrades that they have done in the shopping center. The signs are programmable. They can. There's a lot of functions to the signs, so you can pretty much control it where it wouldn't flash, would not scroll. So you've got a lot of functions with the signs that you can do with it. There again, it would be a good way for the businesses to advertise, run specials, and help the shopping center and attract more customers to the shopping center. I've got some photographs of some digital signs I'd like to show, if I may, of different designs. We do have some signs in the beach areas, and just different designs I'd like to show if I may.
If you wish, you may hand those to Ms. Thuman, and she can project those for all to see.
The signs are available in different text colors. You can have the just standard red or amber text, and they do also offer a tricolor as well as a full color. Rosemeyer is wanting to do the red text like you see there. That they can, like I say, they can run, they can advertise their tenants on there, and they can put up different specials and stuff that they want to do to advertise their business. And as you can see, that there's a lot of different variations and different ways that you can design these signs in a very tasteful way. But we feel like the one thing about the electronic signs is that the maintenance and everything is very low. The electric service that they require, it's a very efficient way for the signs to operate, very energy efficient. The signs that you do currently have in town now that does not operate is probably, I'm not sure how old they are, but it's probably from LEDs fairly new, but the technology has changed rapidly and got a whole lot better. I think the ones that you have in town now that Kim had mentioned that does not work properly is from years ago. The company that we use, Granwell Industries, is a Class Act company, and they stand above any of the LED manufacturers that's out on the market today. So they have a superb product that's very weather resistant. They have a clear Lexan plastic covered face over the front so the LED is not exposed to the weather. Like you see, you can do several different designs and make a very attractive looking sign.
All right, thank you. Anything further?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else from the public wish to comment on this? Mr. Lawrenson?
Yes, I just have a question. There's an old saying that says what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you adopt this amendment, then is the town going to do away with its own digital sign that it has to promote different things that can be erected by the highway in front of the fire station and so forth? And if not, is the town going to say this is wrong for everybody else but us?
Thanks, Rick, you took my thunder. I said, thanks, you took my thunder.
Mr. Allen?
The sign he was referring to is exempt. It's
What a shock.
Already listed as exempt.
Mr. Ratzenberger?
John Ratzenberger, 119 Sea-Watch. With due respect to this gentleman and Chaplain Lawrence, and I've never been any place that I thought those signs were attractive or desirable or wanted to be repeated. However, there's some good points made, the remote change, the limited frequency, that kind of thing. So on a personal side, I don't even care about time and temperature. That's in my truck now. Or, I get my window open, I know what temperature it is. So on one side. However, in a previous position here, while I was on the Citizens Advisory Committee, we spent a session or so talking about ways in which to help businesses within the town. And one of those was signage. I think if you look back at our zoning things, you will see that businesses are restricted in the size of the sign they can have. And it's not necessarily by business, but if it's by facility. So a mall gets about the same size sign as an individual property business if that property is separate, but not a one-for-one relationship. There are, and I've brought this up I think about a year and a half ago when I reported this to the board, that there's a lot of difficulty in some of these malls, Surfside and that, where they're perpendicular to the road, and you don't know what businesses are in that mall because there's not enough signage to advertise them. So unless you get in the mall. The Outer Banks Mall, the condition that Ms. Williams brings up is a valid point. You have to be looking into the mall as you drive by. I think at one time we, either the planning board, the advisory committee, or even this commission talked about allowing internal signage that would at least direct or point people or lead them off, do something to give more consideration to the business, and particularly the small business in here. So the net of this is that I think, go where you will with the LED or digital. I mean, I think the idea of making a remote change of a limited frequency to something is not a bad idea. It's maybe better than climbing up on a ladder and moving letters around and that kind of thing. But I really think that the board and the planning board and staff really needs to seriously get back and look at signage in toto and see what we can do for the small business in this town, taking a look at our signage without turning it into a big, sign fest out there on the lot, on the road. So I think as part of this, you really ought to step back, maybe even from this for a minute, and look at the whole thing to see what we can do to help out the malls and some of those that don't have the visibility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comments on this matter? Does the board wish to receive any further information on this matter before it begins its deliberations?
I'd like to have Kim come back up here.
Okay, Mr. Allen?
Kim, how many applications for these type of signs do we get?
Pardon me?
How many applications or requests for these type of signs do we get?
Do we get typically?
Yeah.
They're very infrequent.
So we don't have anybody beating down the door to get this type
Well,
of...
recently I can think of 3.
You said that the sign that we had over in front of the fire station was, when did we make that exempt? Because we had to take it down once.
In about 3 years, I believe.
Fire prevention sign and all that kind of stuff? And on the sign that we bought, the road sign that we bought?
In about 3 years.
So we can use that.
Yes, sir.
We have an exemption for ourselves.
Yes.
It was
Government at work. I don't see, just in a general question, I mean, I don't see a bunch of people in here beating us, getting it lined up to come to the podium to talk against these signs, and I'm kind of like John Ratzenberger. We get more requests for not having adequate signage than we do having requests for this type of sign. This type of signage, as far as I'm concerned, becomes multiple faceted, I guess, because of the ability to change, having be able to change the sign instead of, like you said, hanging, or somebody said hanging letters and so forth. But we're not asking to change the square footage or the type of coverage. We're just asking to do away, or the request here is to do away with electronic signs. And the reason being, I'm not real clear on the reason, other than the fact that people think that these LED or digital signs have some kind of, will give us some kind of ongoing trauma within the Nags Head. And the other thing that you stated was if we adopt this, we make what's out there non-conforming, which is correct, right? So even though we're making it non-conforming, we can't make them take it down or stop the use. We're just making it non-conforming.
Correct.
Thanks.
Just point of information, Kim, there are currently 4 of these type signs in town, is that
Correct.
correct?
Any further questions for Mr. Allen? If not, any further information for the board on this matter before you begin your deliberations? Oh. One last chance.
Just to add something in, because except for Susie, our planning board, we don't have planning board members here. And I would say that one of the real issues that came out for them was this plasma screen, these sort of LCD television signs that you get. And so if there is going to be a consideration to allow digital signs, that at least maybe allow the planning board to go back and look at that to create those parameters that Kim was speaking of. Because a static digital sign may serve the same purposes, but not create sort of that proliferation of light and sort of the changing images that new technology is allowing people to do. Even if they're static, they can shoot pictures up now through digital signage, like a TV screen. There's several of these in Currituck, and that was one particular type of sign that the planning board was concerned about. The second issue, just to let you know about the planning board discussion, did reflect the issue of if too many of these things happen, say along US 158, then you may actually have a traffic issue, because they do draw your eye away from the road, particularly if they're scrolling, as he mentioned, or if they're flashing. So as long as I think we can confine it to a static message board type of digital sign, I think that would be consistent with some of the planning board's concerns. And I'd invite Ms. Walters to confirm or add to that comment, just so that you hear from the planning board a little bit.
But Elizabeth, we don't permit scrolling or flashing, correct? I mean, that's against the current ordinance.
Correct, right now. The concern really is with kind of the image that is set up there. For example, on a real estate sign, not here in Nags Head, but in others, you could actually put up pictures of houses or properties as part of your static message board. And with the new technology that's coming forward, these plasma screens, they're not flashing, they may be a still picture, but you're going to get a much more complex image than what we're seeing now. So we may at least want to prohibit or put some kind of limitation on the type of digital technology that we're using. That's all.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we or do we not have a lighting ordinance as far as light goes? Elizabeth, isn't that true? Isn't it the signs, the
That is
lit
correct.
signs also can only be so bright?
That's correct.
Okay, I mean, I just don't see the issue here. We are regulating ourselves once again into oblivion, or trying to. Now, I think maybe we should advertise a public hearing more. If everybody's against, this type of signage, then I'm for whatever the people. If people don't want it, that's fine. I'm not hearing that. That's all.
Okay, thanks.
Does the board wish to receive any further information on this matter? If not, any further public comment? All right, at this point, the public comment portion of this matter is concluded, and the board may begin its deliberations on the proposed text amendment.
What do y'all think?
Mr. Walker?
No.
Well, would you like me to make a motion, or would you like me to tell you what I think first?
I'd be interested in hearing what you think.
Okay. Well, having served on the planning board, some of the issues that came up and the reason we voted to prohibit it were it's difficult to regulate taste, first of all. It also interferes with the night sky, which is fairly precious to many of us here. Many don't find them aesthetically pleasing. We're a narrow strip of land, and riding down this strip, do we really want to see a bunch of digital signs as we ride down the road? The plasma, as Elizabeth discussed, can be very distracting and could perhaps be a safety hazard when driving. And when you're here on vacation and you've not been here before anyway, we already have our own set of challenges regarding that issue. Larger businesses and chains are most likely to have these signs as opposed to the smaller business because they're most likely going to be cost prohibitive for the smaller business. And regarding the banks that have them, that's almost a public service, and I think that's probably historic in nature because towns had banks with clock towers or the clock hanging off the building, and for some reason banks have just always had a clock. So the majority voted to prohibit the signs, and I would say the majority of the planning board did not feel that was the image we were trying to project in the town of Nags Head.
Thank you.
I'm not objectionable to all the LEDs. I find the ones in Currituck to be fairly offensive, and if it wasn't for the strips on the side of the road, I find myself almost entranced by them until you hit the side of the road to remind you where your lane's supposed to be. So I think the ones that move, the big billboard one, and I find the ones at a bank up there almost too bright at night to hurt your eyes. But I think that there are times when we do need to look at it. Now, with what John Ratzenberger talked about with interior signage, I don't think this would address that at all. The problems we have with businesses not being able to be seen that are part of a mall. I don't think that what Ms. Williams said is going to, other than a daily special on a sign, is going to impact letting people know what's in the Outer Banks Mall or Surfside Plaza. So I think we have issues to address beyond this with visibility. But I wouldn't be objectionable to having some sort of stipulation about LEDs, but with consideration that it not necessarily pollute the night sky. It's interesting to see the one on the causeway now because there's a gas war going on over there and they catch your eye. So that's, yeah, that is how you go. You're exactly right. But I'm not opposed to everything that's out there, but I think there would have to be parameters on it for me to endorse it. And I think that Reverend Lawrenson made a good point about exempting ourselves and holding ourselves higher than everybody else, and that's not right.
Mayor Pro Tem? I take the complete opposite view of this. I've heard all the issues about the night sky and inhibiting views and so on and so forth. We're a resort area. People have businesses to run. I'm not saying don't keep it, tasteful, because, we try to do the best, and the planning board has done an excellent job in kind of curtailing issues such as this that have come before them to make it more palatable, I guess is a good enough word for people to accept. The issues about signs, will, they will never stop because, signage is something that is at a premium, particularly in Nags Head. I'm not for issuing anything again that's going to make another non-conforming anything in the town of Nags Head. I'm just totally over everything is non-conforming here. The issue about the sizes of buildings and parking lot, everything. Nags Head used to exist on its cottage courts. What's the first thing they did a few years back? They made cottage courts non-conforming because they don't fit properly on the lots. So, the signs, few people have signs here, now we want to make them non-conforming. People have asked us for help for signage, and the next thing I know, we have another regulation prohibiting it. So, no, I think that the signage issue in the town of Nags Head needs to be totally revisit it. I don't think that these type of signs, I don't think these type of signs are intrusive or inhibiting in any way. They talked about not being able to night sky. Well, and then they talk about public safety issues. Now, you have people hit by cars on the beach road and on the bypass because there's not enough light. And the reason why there's not enough light is people don't want to be able to inhibit the view of the night sky. But the public safety issue, does that supersede one or the other? No. We finally put some lights on the bypass up by Kelly's and those areas, and I have yet to have anybody come to me and say, you know, Doug, because you had 3 or 4 people killed there, and it's really too bad, but I can't see the stars anymore. You can't have it both ways. Yeah, like I said, it's a resort area. People have businesses. I'm for revisiting the issue and looking at some more in-depth ways to do something for our signage and try to help people. With the economy being the way it is, I don't think we're doing anything but making another non-conformity in the town of Nags Head. I don't think we need it. However, I'm sure I'm on the, negative side or negative view on this particular item, but that's the way I feel.
Thank you, sir. David Oaksmith told me the road to progress is paved with nonconformities.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether I agree wholeheartedly with that. We have done some good things in dealing with nonconformities here. I do think it's always a balance. There was never a retail guy that had a sign that was too small. People want signs that attract people's attention. That's why they go for bigger signs, brighter signs, signs that move. To me, though, it seems like a static sign with static lights, to me, that's okay. It's simply a replacement of the one where you had somebody putting the letters up there, and now the letters are put up by little lights instead of somebody actually putting the letters up. I'm not sure whether a picture of a house is going to be more distracting than a message that's on the marquee somewhere. I don't have a marquee, just to make sure everybody understands that. I'm concerned about the plasma piece because it is something that we haven't really seen here before. The ones that we've got that show time, temperature, and a message that changes on a daily basis, to me, are okay. I think when you start getting the message that changes more frequently than daily is where I think we should draw that line. And I'll be quiet with
Can I
that.
say one other thing?
Yes, sir.
Hilton Head has always impressed me with their signage. You've been to Hilton Head? I'm sure we've all been. They're not like here. They're lower. The signs are only such a height, but they allow digital signage. They don't seem to have a problem with it. I can't see. We have gone from putting signs way up in the air to putting them on the ground and reducing the number of square footage and all. I think that the planning board or a citizen group, we need to readdress the sign issue, or instead of just arbitrarily saying, nah, this is a bad thing. Let's just go ahead and make it non-conforming or don't approve it. That's all.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Could I ask a question of Kim Allen, please? Kim, if we don't take an action today, are we in danger of somebody being allowed to put up a plasma sign?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mayor, I think we need some more work on this. I see threads of things coming out of people, and I see consensus coming against plasma, moving signs, rotating signs. But I think there's possibly some language that could be had about brightness, frequency of movement, and so forth. And I'd like to see us take a further look at this.
Are you making that as a motion?
I will if you want one. I make a
Motion to table?
I make a motion to table this until, for 90 days, until such time as we can have something brought back, maybe after a joint workshop with the planning board and with citizen input. 90 days would be, I guess, our first meeting in March.
We have a motion on the floor. I'm going to second the motion for purposes of discussion. Further discussion?
I have a question. So if within the 90 days, we have 6 applications for these type of signs, will they go through?
With the existing language, I mean, to me, it seems like anything that moves is not going to go through. The static ones would go through. That's opinion. Kim's probably got a better
The
opinion.
ones that are allowed now would be addressed. The new stuff wouldn't. We're pretty specific.
Can you give us a better answer than that?
Ask Kim to correct me if I'm wrong, but we would govern it under the existing rules that you have, particularly that paragraph C, which the mayor cited before. So static digital signage would be allowed, but moving digital signage, something that scrolled, would still not be allowed. Where that puts, I think the tricky thing for us is where that puts these LCD or plasma screens. I'm not sure where they fit into that. So, you know, maybe we won't have any applications for it. We haven't yet.
A moratorium on accepting any applications for plasma screens? Because Kim said they wouldn't be allowed, but if you're concerned that they would be.
I think an electronic image that doesn't move would have to be considered under our current ordinance as allowed, because we don't have anything that really addresses it directly. But what we could do, and I'd invite participation, is go back to our planning board, try to put together an ad hoc committee, invite some of the members of the business community who are interested in this issue in particular to look at digital signage and find something that clarifies and gives us enough definition to work with for these new technologies, but also maybe meets the needs of the business owners and something that the planning board could get behind. I'd invite that opportunity, and in terms of the 90 days, I would say not to try and do any type of moratorium right now, and hopefully we can turn something around with the existing players that we know are here locally and work with them on their coming applications. Is that fair, Kim? I don't expect to get an application for a plasma screen in the next 90 days, in other words.
But is there a downside to doing a moratorium?
There is a downside to doing moratoriums, and Mr. Leidy may add to this. There's a specific legal process for moratoriums that we would need to go through, which may not be necessary in this case. In other words, I don't see people beating down the door for this. But I would want to make sure before we use the word moratorium that we stayed within the letter of state statutes of how we set those up, and that would require another time, another meeting, a public hearing, and some other things like that, which truthfully in this case it may not be necessary.
Let's clarify for me the requirements for a moratorium.
You would have to conduct a public hearing with notice to the public, so you would need to schedule another hearing, go through that regular process. You would need to have it, I believe it's a quasi-judicial hearing you'd need to conduct.
Has that process changed recently, John?
No, not recently. But, so you're not in a position to adopt a moratorium today.
I may want to rescind my motion. Would the seconder allow me to rescind my motion? I'd like to withdraw my motion for tabling, and instead propose that we adopt the ordinance with the prohibition on plasma or projected images, but exempt the LED or LCD at this time.
And what that does, it continues to maintain what we have, but it prohibits
Maintains what we have, but it prohibits any new styles such as plasma or images such as referred to, such as the real estate housing for sale.
So how will that be worded? Are you, if you look at the
I'm
proposal-
looking at the proposed under definitions, where it says digital sign, strike LCD or LED, and leave the other definitions as presented. But that would keep what we have on the table, but not allow the expansion before we have time to review it.
So it would read, digital sign means any sign featuring electronic display or moving images created by incandescent or plasma or LCD.
Or projected images.
We could just, excuse
Or
me if I
strike it,
may,
please.
just keep that same definition, but strike electronic display or, and then you would have any sign featuring moving images created by incandescent. And then we would also go into paragraph C and make sure that we have that digital sign definition reflected in that prohibition.
Okay.
And the part that's added under part 1, Q, where it says LED and digital signs, should that also be qualified? Because this is the prohibition. This would prohibit all LED and digital signs. Do you want to just recite the same limitations on it? So maybe moving, well, LED and digital signs featuring moving images.
We just defined digital signs to be,
Moving.
yeah. So you just take out the LED, it would seem like you just have a prohibition on digital signs, is that correct?
Right, and because digital, we have a signage person here, digital is a very broad umbrella term. We actually may be better, instead of defining digital sign, define LCD, plasma, LED signage, and then as that's what you're defining, means any sign featuring moving images, etc. And then there, we would drop the proposed, we would change the proposed paragraph that you have there in red to just be LED signage or LED plasma signage. Digital is a broad term, and we might get ourselves in trouble in that case.
And, I'm sorry, did you make a motion to?
No, I was
this is
saying-
discussion, still, right?
Right.
I would suggest that we put it in, can you put it in writing over the next,
Yes, sir.
but
We can
during
certainly
this
do that.
meeting, and we'll come back to it towards the end of the meeting?
That would be fine.
That way we'll all be looking at it in writing and know exactly what we're
Okay.
talking about. So we'll come back to that one. Is that okay with the board? Our next item is number 12. Review of effects of zoning ordinance text amendment adopted in second reading at May 4, 2011. This is the one that the village people spoke about earlier, I believe.
The village people.
And there are two, Elizabeth, just to be clear, there are two ordinances at work here, is that correct?
Correct.
There's a village one, and then there's one that we used on hotels. I need to recuse myself from the village one.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Romali needs to jump on in here on the
I
village
just can't
one.
wait till I get the opportunity to recuse myself.
It's a big responsibility.
I just can't think of what it could be to, that I could recuse myself.
The board should conduct a vote to excuse Mayor Oakes from participation in this matter.
I have a question about that. What if I vote no? What does that mean?
You would have a,
Hung jury.
you'd still have a 3.
Okay.
Mayor Oakes can vote on the motion to recuse, so if everyone else voted in favor of it, it would be 3-1.
Okay.
So you can't stop it that way.
Motion to recuse the mayor from this item as it pertains to the Village Beach Club Village Beach Chair and Umbrella Rental Ordinance.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. I would like to come back after we're done with the village stuff, though.
Do you have to leave the room?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
We're off the chair then. Counselor? And this yours?
I think it's actually Ms. Teague's.
Okay.
Thank you. We're making you do a lot of work today from your planning department.
Elizabeth, I want you to know I didn't do that.
No. Well, these are important but difficult discussions to have. And before you is another one. The minutes the minutes at the time this board adopted the ordinance to allow the village to do rentals had a sunset provision. The sunset provision is the end of this month. So before you is a motion to ask you to either allow the sunset provision to take place, or you could extend the sunset provision, or you could remove it altogether and allow the village to continue beach chair and umbrella rentals within their club from here on out. Town's recommendation was to let this sunset provision occur and to also ask that you initiate a text ordinance to allow us to go back to the planning board and look at other places where beach and umbrella rentals occur. And the reason for staff's position is this. It's very difficult on a public beach like that to have rentals occurring in some places and not others. There's also an enforcement issue. This isn't a reflection of the village. They've actually done a very good job. And I'll apologize and take responsibility for how that was written, because we didn't mean to make it appear that the village was not doing a good job of managing their situation. But we have had some other vendors who have not complied with the rules laid out in the other ordinance related to hotels. That's also in your packet. And you'll see there that there are 5 very specific rules that people have to maintain. It includes that storage has to be off the beach, actually westward of the last line of vegetation, that you can't have any commercial signage on what you're renting when you're renting it from the beach, and that you have to place it so that it's not impeding flow. With the newly nourished beach, that's not as big of an issue as it was initially, and that all exchange of money should happen not on the beach, but in the hotel lobby, and that these rentals should be limited to hotel guests. And that's where we're getting into a real enforcement issue. Not all the vendors have complied with these rules. We've gone out and stopped them, and then the next day they're back. And short of having sort of a zoning patrol on the beach on a daily basis, it was going to be very difficult to regulate rental and money exchange on the beach. Truth is, people will walk up to someone renting an umbrella, "Oh, where did you get that?" Up there at that hotel, and people would follow. So we'd like a chance to maybe again work with our local business community and figure out a comprehensive approach to vendors on the beach when it comes to beach chairs and umbrellas. The other issue I'll bring forward to you is one of equity. This board has said no in certain other circumstances where people have requested to conduct beach chairs and umbrella rentals. I guess it was Jeanette's pier that had come forward, and maybe some of the other piers might be interested as well. And so we're getting down this very difficult slope from a zoning enforcement standpoint of, well, these people can rent it here under these circumstances, and these folks can do it here under these circumstances, but those folks can't. And it also limits the public access to the rental business. You either have to be, according to our rules, a hotel patron or a member of the village, which sort of prevents anyone who's visiting our beach. That limits what that market is. So we would like a chance to revisit at least that ordinance. if not all of the ordinances together. But I will tell you that we have not, in fact, had a problem with the village's rentals per se, which is what you're dealing with in the immediate case now of the sunset provision. So I may have rambled on a little bit, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any for me.
Anybody have any questions, Elizabeth? What the recommendation is the motion to allow the sunset provision for beach chair and umbrella rental ordinance adopted May 4th to lapse, and then a second motion to initiate reconsideration of the ordinance amended section 48-405C2T to allow umbrella and chair rentals as a conditional use in the CR commercial residential zoning district, adopted March 2nd.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to make a motion to allow the sunset provision for beach chair and umbrella rental ordinance adopted May 4th, 2011 to lapse, but also to add the provision that staff bring us back a recommendation of how to incorporate it into the regular zoning ordinance of rental of beach chairs and umbrellas.
Okay.
Second.
Questions?
Just to assure the village that it's not going away, but it's going to be incorporated so that it's not a sunset type provision, and it all be merged into one set of goals.
Do you have anything? Elizabeth, let me ask you a question. You are going to go back and take a look at this thing on an equity issue.
Yes, sir. That's what I would like to do.
Now, I would love to see you do that because, every year we run into the same thing, which you just described. So, you have any idea about when you're going to bring that back?
Well, we'd like to do it before the season, the tourist season. It'd be nice if we could get something done in the next 60 to 90 days, at least by this spring, so that there is a clear direction and clear guidance that we can give potential vendors and people who would like to conduct this activity, and to the public. One thing I would like to see coming out of this is an opportunity for a family just showing up in Nags Head to have a place to rent a beach chair and umbrella that's pretty clear, and not limit it to hotel patrons or village people who are going through the village clubhouse. So that will be something we'll look at. I'm not sure how we'll address it, but I at least want to be open to that, and yet still try to meet the goals of keeping commercialization off the Nags Head Beach. I think I've come to, I'm new here, so I'm still learning, but I have grown to appreciate that aspect of Nags Head and recognize that it's really not fair when you have some people doing it in such a way that they're breaking the rules and making it difficult for everyone else. So we want to make it something that is very clear to enforce and that meets Nags Head's rules, as well as creates this service for our visitors and this business opportunity for our small business vendors. So,
Comment. Elizabeth, I would point out that there are places for people that are coming to Nags Head to rent beach chairs and umbrellas that exist already, that are small businesses located within the town.
That is very true.
I just want to point that out, and I'm not one of them, so I'm not promoting myself, but there are places that do that already, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that we're not here to try to hurt other people.
Great point, too, because I think part of the discussion would be how do we get the word out more effectively? Because a lot of what we're seeing and where planning staff was getting some feedback was someone on the beach seeing a rental. Where did you get it? Oh, that hotel. That creates the difficulty. Or that came from the village, but you really can't go up there because that's a private club. We'll certainly look at that.
I would think that the manager would have some input to talk to you about on those issues too, because Renee's absolutely right. The rental companies that are all out there, on the beach road, et cetera, et cetera. I'm pretty sure that those agencies would also like to be able to step over on the beach and rent their stuff too. So there might be a way to get, again, businesses, not being as it is. The motion is made and seconded. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to say that sooner rather than later, because if a vendor is going to have that operation, they need the opportunity to prepare, plan, purchase the chairs, umbrellas.
As soon as you can.
Well, we have a planning board meeting coming up next week, and we'll bring this as well as the signage issue to them right away.
Is the clerk clear on the motion? Because I wasn't. Okay, all right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, sir. Nice warm seat and everything.
It's a hot seat.
Item number 13, new business, committee reports.
No, we didn't take action on the second item of that.
So sorry. And the second item is the one that deals with hotels, is that correct? Sorry, I'm trying to get to the right spot here. Is there further information from staff on the hotel piece?
You talking about the second recommendation? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
I was just under the impression that that kind of just went by the wayside with the adoption of the first piece.
The adoption of the first piece is we're done on chairs then. Is that correct?
As far as I know, we are, yeah.
Okay. So it sunsetted both of them is what happened.
The one with in the CR did not have a sunset provision, and what staff had recommended was we take action to marry the two of them, and I think you've done that. That we're going to look at the one with the village, look at the one with CR, and then try and figure out how to make what's good for the goose also good for the gander.
Good enough. Good enough. Thank you. Sorry. Item 13, committee reports.
The motion was only to allow the sunset provision and to direct staff to bring us something back. It did not, there was no motion to initiate reconsideration.
Correct.
Reconsideration of the separate CR.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Does the board want to initiate reconsideration for CR?
Yes. Since we have issues down there, yes. It
Okay.
may be that we don't allow them at all.
So motion on the floor to initiate reconsideration on the CR district. I'll second. Further discussion?
I would like to just point out that motion to allow reconsideration would include repeal of that ordinance. Is that correct? That would allow it or not?
I didn't say repeal. That wasn't asked for.
Okay.
It was just reconsideration. Staff never asked for repeal. They just asked to, I think they want to modify it a little bit.
That's fine. I just want to point out that if the board wanted to take action to repeal it, that would need to be included in the public notice, because that would be a change in the character of that ordinance.
So right now, the motion before the board is to initiate reconsideration of the ordinance.
Correct.
Board discussion?
That's not clear enough for me. I don't have a chance to know what that means.
Reconsideration, I think, means that you're going to
I
revisit
understand
the
the
language.
reconsideration thing, but if you get down here, it says, this ordinance is already in place.
That's correct.
408-4, why would we be reconsidering it?
I think
If it doesn't go out with the sunset law, if it doesn't, why would we reconsider something that's already in place?
from staff's perspective, we're going to come back with some recommendations to make it more tighter and give us greater enforcement opportunity based on the issues and the problems that we experienced during this past summer.
These were very similar ordinances. One had a sunset clause, one didn't. The one that had a sunset clause, we've allowed to sunset, and now we're talking about reconsidering the one that deals with hotels. Is that, with asking staff to go back and probably put additional restrictions or some changes on it?
Aren't they coming back with that? That's what we're going to consider when they bring back their request?
I think they ended up being two separate ordinances, so we're just using our belt and suspenders, I think.
Well, I mean, if that's what it is, and it doesn't really mean anything, then is there a motion?
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Call the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion to reconsider passes unanimously. Sorry, y'all, didn't mean to beat that horse too long. Item 13, committee reports. Any committees?
No.
Good. Item number 14 is appointment to the planning board. We have had a request from Commissioner Sadler to delay this somewhat. I do think we need a full planning board. I think we've had an alternate in place for some time, and I would urge the board to consider appointing the alternate. I don't have any problem with waiting until Commissioner Sadler is back to do that, but I'll put it up for what does the board think?
No, I agree.
Which part?
Huh?
Which
Go ahead
part?
and appoint somebody to the board. I mean, Anna doesn't have to be back for that. Unless she has somebody specific that you wanted, but she should have told somebody.
Well, she asked for it to be put off until January to make the appointment, I think.
Oh, okay.
So she has,
That's
she has
fine.
some input, I believe, but,
That's fine.
ma'am, could you?
That was her request to me as well, so I would honor that.
Is that consensus of the board?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. And we will, at the next meeting, have to put somebody on the planning board, and then if we did choose the alternate, we would have to replace the alternate, and I believe we have a possible reappointment. Tom Haddon's term is up.
That's correct.
Okay, so just be thinking about that for the next item. Items referred to in presentations from the town attorney.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I have is a request that the board enter closed session to discuss the sand soda litigation in order to confer with the board's attorney at the appropriate time.
So, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Manager?
First thing we'd like to do is present to you we're going to do the annual report first. This is the presentation of the 2010-2011 fiscal year annual report. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be able to stand before you to introduce this annual report, and also to come ahead of the department heads that will come and give their presentation based on their individual departments. This is something I look forward to every year. I think it gives us an opportunity to show what I believe to be the best town in Dare County with the best staff. I truly believe that we've got an excellent team put together. We're moving in a good direction. We look forward to coming back next year and showing you in the areas that we've improved based on these individual departments. First, I believe that Carolyn Morris is going to come before you and give the presentation, the town managers and board commissioners.
Highlights of this past fiscal year include, excuse me, the beach nourishment project, nuisance structure abatement, the 50th anniversary event, and fiscal monitoring. The Board of Commissioners adopted this past year 42 ordinances, 32 resolutions, and 6 proclamations. The town clerk's office prepared 247 legal pages of minutes and 216 agenda packets for 24 Board of Commissioner meetings. The administration department coordinated the 50th town anniversary events and the Memorial Day, Veterans Day annual celebrations. Beach nourishment preparations included special assessment petition coordination and the drafting, mailing, collecting, and recording of 462 easements. The town website provides easy access to Board of Commissioners meeting agendas, backup, and attachments directly from the home page. For information dissemination, the town has issued 76 email broadcasts to over 570 subscribers, 38 news releases, 157 tweets to over 850 subscribers, the annual town brochure, quarterly newsletters, and the town participates in the Dare County Joint Information section.
Good morning. Administrative Services is responsible for billing and collecting water, taxes, business licenses. We also provide services to the other town departments through purchasing, payables, personnel, payroll and benefits. Some of the things that we track during the year, the number of payable checks issued. Those are up both in the number of checks by 3% and the number of ACH payments by 5%. We are trying to pay as many as we can through ACH since that's a more economical way to make payments. We also saved $2,207.36 in purchase discounts by early payment of invoices. Number of purchase orders for the year is also up 6% from 860 to 909. The number of privilege licenses issued remained the same at 1,150. Water bills were up slightly, increasing by less than 1% from 28,379 to 28,464, and the number of new water service accounts remained the same at 15. Tax bills actually decreased by less than 1% from 6,033 down to 6,010. The collection rate was 99.75. It was up slightly over the prior year, and it is one of the highest collection rates in the state. For payroll and benefits, we spent $309 advertising 7 full-time vacancies. We issued 471 payroll checks and 3,252 direct deposit advices. And as of July 1, 2011, all payroll will be paid through ACH rather than checks. Information technology also had a busy year last year. New equipment included public Wi-Fi in Town Hall reception area, 6 additional Board of Commissioner laptops, a virtual machine host server, replacement of the town telephone system with voice over IP, 8 local area network switches, 13 desktop replaces, and 2 laptop replacements. Software replaced during the year included a teaching training software, antivirus software replaced. IT was also involved with reviewing and approving the replacement of financial software with Edmunds and the replacement of planning permitting software through Blueprints. Those new softwares will be installed in the current fiscal year. The equipment supported by IT includes the telephone system with its server switches and 102 telephones, data storage for the email archiver and 2 storage area networks, 48 mobile device cell phones and 14 air cards, computers and printers, including servers, desktop, laptops, and printers, and also the network infrastructure, including the firewalls, the router, fiber converters, switches, wireless access points, and 4 wireless backhaul points.
Hi, your Planning and Development Department is working very hard for you, hopefully as you've seen, to try and make sure that as a town and a community, we're considering very methodically and fairly land use decisions. Our main charge is to help you implement the 2010 land use plan, which you adopted. And our department goals in that effort are really timely and quality service to customers who are seeking any sort of zoning, building, subdivision, or other permit through our office. We want to make sure that we're providing quality staffing to all town boards and the Board of Commissioners. And we want to make sure we're doing it in a way that is seeking citizen input and that is truly a democratic process. We also want to provide you with balanced information and recommendations for your decision making and to incorporate into that decision-making long-term planning ideas and recommendations for your consideration. One of the things we've been doing on an ongoing basis as part of our service, let's see, go back to the first slide, Lisa, is our septic health program. For those of you who may not be familiar with this, this is part of our initiative to ensure water quality by providing services to owners of septic systems. We will provide you septic systems. This past year, we did over 300, you can see. We also have a credit program. If you call for an inspection and you get some recommendations from us, we'll give you a credit, a $30 credit, to help with a septic like flushing program. And this has actually been a very solid program that's remained consistent throughout the years. We also monitor water quality throughout our town, and we took over 260 samples at 26 sites that we monitor. Next slide, please. One of the big things we did was actually complete and tie up and provide copies, and they are on our website, of the 2010 land use plan, which I mentioned earlier. We provide services in grant writing to other town departments, and we looked at grants for Whalebone Park, the multi-use trail, through FEMA, and some other areas. These are 3 of the grants that were successful. As part of our FEMA services, we maintain what's called the Community Rating System, or CRS. That's a program which allows citizens of Nags Head who have flood insurance to get a slight discount, because our town is committed to implementing floodplain rules and the National Flood Insurance Program. We also do a hazard mitigation plan and work with our emergency services folks and the county. We staff the Beach Road Committee and the Parks and Recreation Plan Committee, and the Parks and Recreation Plan, as you know, is coming back to you in January for your consideration. Next slide. Zoning text amendments. We presented 22 in a year, which is a lot, considering there's only 12 regularly scheduled monthly meetings. 15 of those were adopted. Site plans, similarly, we've brought before you 4 applications that were processed, 3 of which were approved. Your Board of Adjustment is that relief board that an applicant can go to if they would like to pursue a variance or appeal a decision of the staff. We've had 5 variance applications in the last fiscal year, 2 of which the Board of Adjustment supported. Next slide, please. Another thing that our department does is building inspections. And as a building inspections agency, we're agents of the state. We have to enforce state building codes. And in that capacity, we're processing all the building permit applications, both renovation and new construction. You can see from FY09 to FY10-11, we're seeing a slight increase in sort of single-family homes, a slight decrease in single-family homes that are large, what we call large, or over 3,000 square feet. We haven't had in any year, in either of those last 2 years, multifamily. And then we're seeing about a small but similar commercial construction rate. Go ahead. However, even as new construction or renovation permits may fluctuate through the years, our inspection needs are constant in this town. And that's because every season, particularly with rental properties, people are needing to come in and retrofit materials, replace mechanical equipment, do small repairs after a storm season. And you can see in the last 2 years, we've had a pretty steady stream of building inspections. In FY 06-07, that tall one, you'll see a bump there because of a storm that we had. When we come before you next year, you'll see a similar bump because we've had such an increase in inspections related to Hurricane Irene. Next year. In processing building permits, people have to make they have to tell us the construction value that they are adding to a property for either a new construction valuation estimate or a repair valuation estimate. And here we're just showing you, based on those permits that we have processed and closed out, what the additional valuation, property valuation that has been added to this town through building constructions and repairs. You can see again, reflecting that last slide, single family, slight increase, well, 85% increase, not a slight increase, which is good. The big houses that we're seeing fewer of those. And then general sort of repair renovations of homes, we're seeing a pretty steady need in that. But in all three of those categories, we're adding value. As people repair, as they build new, we're adding value to our town. Eventually, this will come back around in tax revenue, we hope. On the commercial side, new development, we're seeing the commercial value that we have, that increase is mainly due to the size of the structure. We've had a couple of really good new commercial investment in this town. You mentioned Tuesday Morning, that was one. We have also had a sort of consistent commercial renovation as well. And you'll see that with each renovation and each new construction, we're adding, again, just adding value to our real estate. Lisa. I'll turn it over now to Chief Brinkley. Thanks.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. It's my privilege to come before you today for your police department's annual report. The first slide we have before you has a sampling of criminal calls and arrests. Down at the bottom, you'll see the categories of burglary, which are the break and enterings, a slight increase. Larceny remained about the same. Controlled substance arrests, which are our narcotics violations, did show a slight increase. Auto larceny remained about the same, and there was a decrease in the number of alarm calls that we responded to. For the number of calls that we responded to, there was a decrease from this past fiscal year to the previous, a 9% decrease in the calls for service. In animal control, you'll see it decreases, significant decreases in the number of citation and animal bite investigations. That was due to our animal control officer being out on leave an extended period of time it's the cause of those decreases. However, you will see that the number of animals impounded, there was a slight increase. That is due to the feral cat, mainly attributed to that. In traffic, the number of citations these are that are written, there was just a very slight increase, and then warning tickets remained about the same from fiscal year 9-10 to fiscal year 10-11. There was a decrease of approximately 41 vehicle accidents comparing the two fiscal years, and those involved the vehicles, pedestrians, motorcyclists, etc. And with the decrease in the number of accidents, there was also a decrease in the estimated damages from those accidents. Highlights, this is something I enjoy pointing out to everybody. Canine Boss, he was our drug dog that was purchased in 2006. He retired in this past summer, and we were able to purchase using drug forfeiture funds, which is the monies from the state of North Carolina. We were able to purchase, using those funds, a new drug dog. We also were able to send Officer Jeb Tate to the 8-week school. That too was paid for by utilizing the drug seizure funds. So we're very happy that we've been able to continue our canine program and was able to do that utilizing the funds through our narcotic seizures. There's also, you'll see that an officer was assigned to the Dare County Sheriff's Office Narcotics Unit. This was done utilizing existing personnel. There was no increase in personnel for this to be done, and it has significantly increased our capabilities of narcotics investigations in Nags Head. The other highlight you'll see is New York's, we can go back one slide, thank you. The New York State fugitive arrested. I included this. This was the gentleman from New York that was in the Nags Head Woods area. September 17th, we were able, from a joint investigation with Dare County, involved the Coast Guard, Kildover Hills Police Department, we were able to arrest him for stealing a car from the state of New York. He fled to our state, had done several burglaries in our area, but we were very happy to get him after a joint effort. Another high point was the dedication of our West Side multi-use path to Sergeant Earl Murray. This was an idea of now retired Commissioner Wayne Gray. we worked on, the manager and I were on a committee along with Mayor Pro Tem Romali, and we were able to dedicate the multi-use path in Earl's name. And you can see up in the upper right-hand corner a nice monument that's there in the area of Satterfield Landing and 158. Another highlight is the enhancement of the Nags Head Community Information Exchange. This is an email-based program where our residents and visitors can get updates on public safety news, crime prevention techniques, and crime that is occurring within the town of Nags Head through emails. Those come directly from my office. I send them out personally, and due to some assistance with residents, we're able to get that word out and have significantly increased the number of participants in that. The Community Watch program, we're proud to say that it's our 17th year for the town of Nags Head. We have a very successful Community Watch program, one that I think is looked upon by other communities in Dare County as a model of what they would like to have. During the last fiscal year, you'll see that our citizens and visitors reported to the police department 261 suspicious persons and 208 suspicious vehicles. Some of our police and community watch association events, the National Night Out Against Crime. Nationally, it was the 27th annual event, and here in the town of Nags Head, it was our 14th annual. So we're very proud that we've continued to have this event for 14 years. I did bring up at our last, after this last event occurred in August, that the 2012 event will have changes. We're certainly looking forward to improving the program that we give to our citizens and visitors. Another one is the Appreciation Luncheon. That's held by the Community Watch for Nags Head Public Safety, Police, Fire, and Ocean Rescue. It's something that our staff really looks forward to, and it's appreciated by what the Community Watch Association does for us. As usual, we've participated in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. It gives us an opportunity to promote Nags Head Community Watch. Also, the Children's Easter Egg Hunt, 18th annual event is what we had, which is, we've gone a long ways, and if you've ever come out to it, it's when you're standing out in the middle of the grass field getting ready to let the kids go, it's fun to see them run out. We do 2 age groups, and it's very well attended, and we're certainly happy with that. And one point that's not on there I do want to bring up, on 2 occasions recently, we have partnered with our Outer Banks Hospital to sponsor a medicine drop. And this is where our citizens can come to the Outer Banks Hospital, and we do it in the parking lot utilizing our command post, where they can dispose of unwanted prescription pills. And I will tell you that the program or the event that we held in October, 14,000 prescription pills were collected from, and that's just not Nags Head citizens, that's people from throughout Dare County, but it provides a proper way to dispose of the narcotics instead of the old saying where you just take it and flush it down the toilet. That's really not the proper way, and it can pollute our waterways and stuff. So we're very proud to have partnered with Outer Banks Hospital. It's such a success, we're going to continue more frequently with these, and we certainly put out our press releases and let our citizens know. But I do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Good morning again. I'm here to give you the report on the Fire and Rescue Department activities for fiscal year 10-11. And I will tell you that we've had a very productive and busy year. Our fire call responses, in fact, did increase by 5% versus 850 versus 810 in fiscal year 9-10. Those increases were primarily due to EMS calls, I'm anticipating, or I believe that they were mostly ocean rescue responses from the 2010 summer season. Our fire calls were up by 15 as well. We did see an increase in the number of mutual aid responses that we provided to our neighboring communities. We went to 18 separate calls, requests for assistance from different fire departments: Collington, Kill Devil Hills, Roanoke Island, and Mans Harbor. So we actually have been going out and doing more work outside of our town as well. And we feel like that when our fire department neighbors call for help, we want to be there to give them the assistance that they need. That way we can also get the benefit of their benevolence when we need help ourselves. Our losses due to structural fire damage in fiscal year 10-11 were $243,000, $950. That was an actual increase, and that was attributed to one major fire that we had on Pelican Street on February 27th, 2011. The prior year, we had several assorted smaller fires that contributed to about $200,000 in damage. We provided 256 fire inspections in our Nags Head community in this past fiscal year versus 320. And that's about a 20% decrease. And it implies that maybe perhaps we weren't out there doing our job, making or providing the inspections that we needed. But we are on a 3-year inspection cycle. So some businesses actually have a 3-year cycle that they see us once every 3 years. And you know, some others, some of the large assemblies, we go back every year. So our inspection schedules kind of fluctuate. So that 20% decrease will be made up in the coming years. I want to mention too that our career fire department training went up 20% or 26% in fiscal year 10-11. And that was primarily, our increase was primarily due to the Windmill Point training that we were involved in. And we had some valuable training sessions there focused on firefighter safety, rescue, and fire control. Additionally, we were fortunate to have quite a few of our career fire staff invited to the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland this year. And we sent about 4 people up for 1 to 2 week sessions. So that really boosted our training. Go ahead. Our beach pit fire permit program has been very salient and a wonderful revenue source for our town, as well as still providing the same type of recreational opportunity for our visitors. We brought in, well, the 823 pit fire permits that we wrote brought in about $8,230, and that was less than a 1% increase over the prior year. I really do believe that had there not been a burn ban that was instituted in late June of 2010, that we would have probably met and exceeded that goal. But that's been a very, very good program, and our customers don't seem to mind the $10 cost per permit. We installed 79 or oversaw the installation of 79 infant car seats in fiscal year 10-11 versus 75 in 9-10. It was a little bit of an increase. But just again, this program has been a very, very wonderful benefit for the people at Outer Banks Hospital, for the folks that come in and have their kids, and they come right over and they get their car seats inspected. And so they're able to leave our facility with a safe installation for their newborns to travel home in. Our fire safety participants in fiscal year 10-11 rose about 28%. And we're real happy with that figure because we feel like all that public education and community outreach helps to reduce our overall fire and EMS call volume. Those participants came to our youth fire prevention night. We had over 400 small youth. We had over 400 youth there. We participated in school education programming during Fire Prevention Week activities, and during the season, we provide numerous station tours, and those account for all those increases. We're always looking for ways to participate and increase our fire prevention efforts in town. Our goal being the complete elimination of fire-related deaths, injuries, and losses. Okay. Our emergency responses to commercial properties dropped by 14% in fiscal year 10-11, which is good. However, they did rise by 11% in fiscal year 10-11, and we believe that was again due to ocean rescue traffic that we had in the last half of 2010. Okay. Our ocean rescue division was very, very busy. When you break out fiscal year and calendar year, it's a little bit easier for me to explain it that way. But in 2010, we had a very, very busy ocean rescue season. Just the beach topography and all of the terrain and, of course, increased visitation really related to a large increase in the number of people that we rescued from the water. In fact, we had a 140% increase from the prior fiscal year. So those 555 people that we rescued from the water versus 231 in 9/10 were primarily because of rip current activity. Most people that swim, if they get into trouble, there is a rip current in the area. The USLA estimates that 80% of the people that get in some or are in some distress in the water, it's due to some type of rip current or lateral current. So that's really why that number went up, and we had just quite a few rip currents based on our sandbar configuration in the summer of 2010 for the last half. We did add the Ida Street lifeguard stand in the beginning of this season and this fiscal year 10-11, and that really helped take some of the heat down in that area, and they were able to make some pulls and save some lives there. Our beach population really grew in fiscal year 10-11. We realized a 21% increase, and that really is, those numbers are borne out in Dare County Tourism Bureau figures. We're continuing to see these huge increases on our beach. And as they come out, as people start to take their vacations again and hit the beach, I think that, and hopefully we will be able to see that growth continue. We just need to be mindful of the fact that our service needs to be commensurate and not overwhelmed by the growth that we're seeing on the beach. And there's quite a few people coming out. We provided 136,346 educational advisories in fiscal year 10-11 versus about 100,000 the fiscal year before, and that's about a 36% increase. We believe a lot of that was attributed to beach nourishment. Everybody wanted to know about that. And we also implemented yellow dangerous rip current flags this summer, and those really helped out a lot, and I think that probably contributed to the fewer number of people that we had that had to be pulled out, but it increased our educational advisories. So those dangerous current flags were a good talking point for the visitors as they came to the beach, and they could ask questions of the lifeguards and find out where the safe areas were to swim. Okay. We had 16 beach closure days in fiscal year 10-11 versus 17 the prior year. That's about a 6% decrease. And traditionally, we have 2 or 3 days in the beginning of the season, or June, July, and then as the hurricane season kind of starts to generate more increased wave action, we have the remainder of those beach closure days or swimming closure days toward the end of the season. Our lifeguard unit, again, participated in the USLA South Atlantic Regional Lifeguard Championship in the B division, which is 50 guards or less, and took 3rd place. So they continue to keep up a good presence in the competition circuit. Okay. Our Reserve Fire Department currently maintains 18 members in a reserve status. They're involved in fire operations, EMS response, training. We have some people that are involved in support, so they would come out to the fire scenes and help out the town in other ways and make sure that the rehabilitation of firefighters was achieved. We also have someone, Paulette Matthews, who comes into the town or comes into the fire department on a weekly basis and volunteers 6 or 8 hours during the week. And so she helps out with administration support, typing up memos and helping out with other activities. We are continuing to attract volunteers who attend, again, training, provide station standby, and respond to emergencies. Our reserve training hours went up dramatically in fiscal year 10-11 by 71%, and our reserve standby hours, those are the people who come to the station just to run calls and work with the career crew, went up by 20%. And we were fortunate enough to have 3 reserve members certified in the state of North Carolina as firefighter level 2. So that's really good. Okay. And lastly, we made the successful transition, as well as the police department and all of the other emergency departments in Dare County, to the 800 megahertz system. There was a little bit of a growing pain for, not only paying for that equipment, but also for just operational and training issues. But it's turned out to be a very successful system, and we like working with it, and it's shown its value in particular during the recent storm. So Fortunately, a large portion of the fire part of the acquisition was funded with 2 federal grants totaling $127,000. That's it.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. As for many years, Public Works had another busy year this past fiscal year, and we'll start out looking at one of the 2 things that we measure that kind of allows us to keep our fingers on the pulse of activity in the town, and that's solid waste volume. This is commercial refuse. For the total year, we saw a slight decrease, about a 4% increase. And it's interesting that in a minute we'll look at a similar curve for residential refuse. And the one thing that we don't see with residential that we do is this little bump in October. But if we saw it once and didn't see it again, it might be considered an anomaly. But apparently every year, whether it's after the summer season is over, businesses start cleaning out their inventory and getting rid of things that they didn't sell and don't want to keep and put on the shelves again next summer. So they tend to generate more solid waste in October, but we see that on a regular basis. We see that bump in October rather than having a smooth drop off down into January and February, which along with our water consumption are the 2 lowest months of the year. This is our residential numbers comparing the last 2 fiscal years. Here we only saw a slight decrease, a 1% increase. In a minute I'll talk about the amount of recycling that's taking place at the residential level, and I think if you added the numbers together you would find that we actually increased in our total solid waste from one year to the next, because we're doing quite a bit more recycling now than we've done in the past. But the next curve shows those 2 numbers combined, and we saw about a 2% decrease from fiscal 09-10 to fiscal 10-11. The next couple of slides this shows 5-year trends, and again we see that in some months we saw an increase over the previous month, but for the previous year rather. But for the most part, the high years that we've experienced in the past, we're not seeing, and they haven't come back. These yellow and green bars are years 6, 7, and 7, 8, when we still saw a fairly healthy economy during the summer months, which we have seen drop off over the last 3 years. Now this shows our recycling tonnage. This, of course, is a program that the town doesn't directly provide, but the commissioners have granted a franchise to a local private company, and they pick up by subscription from homes in Nags Head. It's interesting that we saw an increase of, for the total year, the increase in tonnage was up about 50% from the previous year. But one thing that has, and I want to credit Roberta with this, even though she's not here, is that she has been publicizing in the town's quarterly newsletter the fact that this service is available for as few as 3 months of the year. And we're seeing more and more people subscribe just for the June, July, and August months. And as a matter of fact, in this fiscal year, we've already seen the contractor pick up 81% of the total tonnage that he picked up in all of last year, in 12 months of last year. The total number of subscribers has gone up to almost 420 in the month of July, which is a jump from about 350 is what it's been running in the off season. So there's about a 20% increase just for those 3 months, and people who come here on vacation want to be able to recycle and want to be able to do it conveniently. And we're very encouraged by the fact that our rental property owners are subscribing to this system and helping to take this volume out of the waste stream. Obviously, whatever is recycled is tonnage that the town doesn't have to pay for when it's taken to the transfer station in Stumpy Point. But it also certainly helps the economy, and we want to encourage that continued growth in the program. This shows the growth in subscribers, and again, for every month in fiscal 10-11, there was an increase in the total number of subscribers. And of course, when we got into May and June, we saw a better than 50% increase in the total number of homes that had one of those yellow lidded carts that they put out on Tuesday, and recycling gets picked up. In projects that were done over the last year in the water distribution area, as far as townwide is concerned, of course, we had a major project, beach nourishment. But there was also a major project that went forward, began in 2010-11 and was completed this fiscal year, and that was a replacement of the entire water system in the Cape Hatteras National Seashore that we provide water to. Now, this was a system that we inherited when the town took over that water system over 20 years ago. The pipe was made out of asbestos cement. We knew we had a lot of leaks in the pipe, but they were very hard to find because many of them were in marshy, wet areas. And we had been working with the National Park over several years to get funds, federal funds, to replace that system, and they were able to do that. This is probably the largest water project that has been done in Nags Head in decades, and yet it was not done at the expense of the town of Nags Head. It was done at the expense of the National Park Service. And that system has now been approved by the state. It's now in operation. It provides water, fire protection, for example, at the Body Island Lighthouse, much better than it was ever provided before. It also upgraded from a 6-inch to an 8-inch line all the way down to Oregon Inlet to the facilities down there. And this is a significant improvement to our system, and we expect to see an equivalent reduction in water that we are buying from Dare County that we're not turning around and selling to our retail customers because those leaks now don't exist anymore. We also conducted a project where in South Nags Head where we have several hydrants that are on the west bank of that ditch that stretches from 8800 all the way down to the southern end of town. We had culverts behind those hydrants, and some of those culverts were failing, and so those were all replaced in the last fiscal year. We saw a slight decrease in water taps, but a significant increase, 61%, in service line repairs. And we also saw a decrease of 43% increase, in water main repairs. And again, sections of our line are aging. We'll see water consumption numbers here shortly. We had a very cold winter compared to previous winters. We had a hard freeze on the 15th of December, and that resulted in not only a lot of frozen pipes in homes that had not yet been winterized, but we also had 3 water mains that failed, one of which was in the national park down near the lighthouse, that took us a while to find and get replaced and get repaired. And so we did see some increases in water consumption due to those leaks. We also had a slight decrease, about 11%, in locate requests. And again, when work is being done, we get a request to go out and locate where our water lines are so that any underground work that's being done will not sever our utilities. And this is another indication of somewhat of a slowdown in development. Work in water operations included, I guess we could say, the final stage of our shutdown of the Fresh Pond Water Treatment Plant. We had 2 bulk chemical storage tanks out there that we sold on gov deals, and they were removed. We also had to do some repairs due to lightning strikes. We have those periodically that affect the computers and the monitoring systems that we have for our water system. We replaced the transfer switch at the Gull Street generator. That was a facility where when commercial power is interrupted, the generator is supposed to automatically come on and provide power so that those pumps can continue to run to take water from the Dare County system. But that was not happening, so we replaced that transfer switch, and now that process works as it was originally intended to. We also did some work at 8th Street as a follow-up to an OSHA inspection to add some additional safety on the top of one of our tanks that folks have to go up on top of once in a while by putting up an aluminum fence around it so that they would be better protected against any fall hazards. And we also completed our water master plan update. This was a project that was 2 years in the making. It gave us a plan, suggested water line improvements that we will be looking at over the next several years to not only improve the domestic flow in areas of town, but also increase fire flows by linking dead-end portions of our system together to provide, for example, in Nags Head Woods, provide better fire flow on Villa Dunes Drive and in Nags Head Woods by putting in a relatively low-cost connection between Northridge and Villa Dunes Drive, but we'll be looking at those suggestions and those recommendations in future years. This shows the total water pumped. This is water that we buy from Dare County and pump into our system, and we had about a 7% increase. Again, the numbers for the winter months, December, January, and February, a combination of a very cold winter. Also, that reflects a more aggressive flushing program. We do flushing of our lines in December, January, and February. Actually, we did start in December last year, and normally we don't start until January, so that was also contributing to that increase in water consumption. This shows our 5-year trends as far as water is concerned, and again, the red bars on the right-hand side in several of the months did increase from the previous year. We still see this curve that represents our tourist season and shows us again that January and February, like with solid waste, are our low months of water consumption, because that's when the town population is at its lowest ebb during the year. Public facilities maintenance continues to maintain our 36 miles of streets. As the board well knows, we're adding more length to our west side multi-use path with each year, and maintenance of that is a year-round function, but it also becomes much more intense in the summertime with mowing and keeping that path clean so that our tourists and our citizens can take advantage of the good weather to get out and exercise using those paths. We continue to place and empty out 7 days a week, 130 trash cans on the ocean front. We maintain 6 public restrooms, 33 crosswalks, and a mile of additional sidewalk. This is not multi-use path, but these are sidewalks like along Danube Street and Barnes Street that connect the bypass to the beach road and to our multi-use path along the beach road. Town Hall complex, Public Works complex are also maintained. We get high praise from people who come and visit. We had a lot of people this year because of the 50th anniversary who visited town facilities that typically don't do that during the year, and we received a lot of positive comments about the condition of Town Hall and other town facilities. The maintenance garage continues to maintain a very high level of maintenance capabilities. There are a lot of things that we do in Nags Head that other communities have to contract out because their mechanics don't either have the training or the equipment that allow them to perform these higher levels of maintenance. While we had about an 11% decrease in work orders, we had a 26% increase in labor hours. And when I looked into these numbers, it was because we had fewer repairs, but several of the repairs that we did do were much more major repairs on trash trucks and fire trucks, and therefore they consumed more labor hours on those specific maintenance activities. We also maintain all the town's licensed vehicles and numerous unlicensed vehicles, ATVs, mowers, backhoes, loaders, construction equipment, as well as police, fire, solid waste, and those obviously take a lot of the time. They have a very vigorous off-season program. For example, the trash trucks go through a rigorous checklist and repair during the off-season, knowing the demands that are placed upon them during the summer from May to September. And so our garage staff does an excellent job of getting those vehicles ready to hit the road and hit it hard in the summertime. And then they're also responsible when new vehicles are purchased, whether it's a trash truck, whether it's a police car. They go through a significant and very thorough check of that vehicle before the town accepts it, before the town pays for it and gets it licensed and puts it out on the road to make sure that it meets the specifications that were used when it was purchased. Thank you.
In addition, this board has spoken very clearly about the expectation for the fiscal responsibility, and I think the the audit that you heard from at your last meeting spoke very clearly, I hope, that the finance officer and the department heads and all town staff did an excellent job in the fiscal year, living well within our means. Again, the revenues exceeded expenditures by $407,000. But as we told you, part of that was a carryover from some capital outlay purchases that did carry it over. Okay. General fund available, fund balance, $7,339,000. If we went by the LGC's recommendation of an 8% available fund balance, which we know is not reasonable in the coastal area, that would mean we'd have $817,000 of fund balance. So we've got a healthy fund balance. This is evident in the last audit. The available fund balance as a percentage of expenditures was 71% at year end, and versus down just a little bit from about 75% at the end of fiscal year 10. Townwide cash and investments, $27 million at year end versus $12 million at year end 2010, but that's of course because of the money that we're carrying for financing for beach nourishment. Next. And I'll just end before your questions by continuing the promise that we'll do everything that we can to provide quality services and continued excellence in local government leadership. I want to thank the board, I want to thank the staff for their presentation, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Questions?
Comment, just for the staff, next time that you talk to them, just pass on our gratitude for what a fine job that everybody's been doing in some adverse conditions such as the storm, etc., and that we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
One other comment, Cliff.
Yes, ma'am.
It shows that our training of our staff reaps benefits for our citizens, and I'd like to thank you and all your staff for that training and the dedication that they give to the job in all departments.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to give you the final report, the preliminary results of the final report from our beach nourishment project. These are preliminary in that this is more or less sort of an executive summary. The final results will have much greater detail, but this will show the surveys. This will show the beach as it is or as it was when it was surveyed last month. So what you'll get in the final report will be much greater verbiage. Can you blow this up at all? Can you get that? Can you? I don't know if you can or not, but I take a minute to thank Lisa Ward for filling in for Roberta. Lisa got a phone call a couple hours ago from Roberta. Roberta said, "I just got the Employee of the Year. I'm out of here. You got to come over here." Said,
Time to take it back.
She said, "You just won Employee of the Year. What are you going to do now?" She said, "I'm going to Florida." And so she's on a much-deserved vacation. So thank you, Lisa, for filling in. And thank you, Chief. I hope the department's not falling apart while she's over here. Okay. What I want to be able to show here, and this is something that Roberta put together, this will kind of put a visual framework, a visual perspective of what we show you, these elevations that are taken, but they're on a graph. So this will show you as it kind of looks, not to scale, but this will show you what it looks like on the beach. And we've been able to verify that down here at the bottom, you'll see that 4,615,126 cubic yards were added to the beach system. That's what was put in place. It's a little over 15,000 than what we paid for, 15,000 cubic yards than what we paid for. What still remains in the beach system, which we define for the purposes of seeking reimbursement from FEMA, is what remains in the beach system is what remains from 19 feet up till the natural line or the berm elevation of 6 feet. So of that 4,451,000 cubic yards still remains in the beach system. Anything that goes from this 19 feet seaward is what can be claimed to FEMA for reimbursement. That's not enough. That's just clearly not enough to make a claim to FEMA for reimbursement. There is a margin of error, but I think that amount could easily fall within that margin of error. You'll see here that from a 12-foot depth, more than all of the sand that was placed can be accounted for. A little over 4.7 million cubic yards can be accounted for. Now we know that's very possible and conceivable because we had to do some adjusting just before the project started because of accretion. From the time that we got the project approved to do and the time that we actually went to build it, there was some accretion. So it's really not this is better news than what we could possibly hope for, I think. We've got some accretion, but all the sand's still within 12-foot elevation, 12-foot depth. And then you can see from 6 feet, somewhere in here is what we would consider as the visible beach. Depending on tides, the visible beach at low tide would be somewhere in here. And of the sand that was put in place, 52% of it is on the visible beach, 48% of it is seaward of that visible beach. But that sand is what feeds the visible beach. The other thing I want to point out on this picture is there is some sand that has shifted beyond, landward, beyond of what was placed at the 6-foot elevation, or 6 foot being the top of the berm. That is why it's so important for us to get this sand fencing in as soon as we possibly can. You've approved, we've already entered into a contract to do all of Reach 3 with the budget adjustment that you approved today. It added another roughly $24,000, I think. So we've got about $50,000 worth of sand fence that we're going to be able to put in, and that will we're going to do all of Reach 3. And this is the sand that's going to collect. That's going to start Monday. So we'll get that work done started Monday. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question? Cliff, are we notifying people that they are going to get sand fencing or they aren't? Because if they aren't, they need to go ahead and make arrangements to do their own.
What we have, all of Reach 3 is getting it. So if you're in Reach 3, you're going to get sand fence. But I encourage everyone to go ahead and make sure that they've submitted that request. Just because some folks may not know if they're in Reach 3 or not, they're not going to know at what reach they fall. So I encourage everyone to make that application to Public Works to get included in that. If you'll go on to
Quick question on your diagram.
Wait a minute.
Sorry,
Yes.
just
Go
so
ahead.
I understand. Out to -12, you've got 4.7.
Yes.
Then out to -19, 4.4. That doesn't make sense to me. Shouldn't that number, the farther out you go, shouldn't it be more sand if you include out to 19 feet?
This is the point at which we start to lose some of it, or it starts shifting out beyond 19 feet. So all of the sand can be accounted for from 12 feet landward. At that point, it starts going seaward. So it's a cumulative amount. So once you get to that point, you can see that the, I don't know what the math there is, 160,000 has gone seaward. It's going the other way, so to speak. I don't know if that explains it very well or not, but
Like you said, it's cumulative, so it seems like the farther out you go, the bigger the number you would have.
not of what we placed.
Okay.
Not of what we placed. And I think this, in some of the other graphs, it'll hopefully more clearly explain that. But if you could go to that first, the next one is, and we're going to put this summary, we'll put this on the website so that you can see all the text and all of these slides. Can you zoom in at all on that one? There you go. I don't know if you can make that. All of this we'll put this on our website so that folks can read this and see for themselves. Is that as close as it'll get? Okay. What this illustrates, I'll read some of this text. Between 24 May and 27 October, Great Lakes placed, as I said, a little over 4.6 million cubic yards along the 10-mile project area. At that time, 70% of the sand was placed above mean low water, and 30% was placed below mean low water. After we did this survey, what it shows is that of that 70%, 52% remains on the visible beach above mean low water. 48% is contained between the mean low water and the 12-foot depth contour. Sand loss out of the project area to date have been negligible. Okay, figure A will show, it shows at the top there a typical cross section of the beach before and after nourishment. The upper diagram shows the initial shape of the nourished beach as sand was pumped onto place. It's kind of hard to see, but this area here is that 70% that was put into place. Typically, there was about 200 feet of berm at the top. This is that 70% that's above. This is that 30% that's below. The gray area is what was in place, what the beach looked like before we did the project. This green line indicates the boundary of what was put into place. The middle diagram, figure A, shows the profile of the beach after Hurricane Irene and several fall nor'easters. Storm waves have pushed some sand higher on the dry sand beach, while at the same time, the wet sand beach receded landward. Thus, the dry beach narrowed by about 25 to 33%. Some sand from the wet beach shifted offshore and formed a bar, which you can see that's the bar right there, that brown spot. Formed a bar 400 to 600 feet from the foredune. CSC determined that the limit of significant sand movement since nourishment was the 12-foot depth contour. So the sand moved to a 12-foot depth. Now there's some of that sand, but it's not nearly as much. It's shifted beyond, and once it goes out, then that's the part that we can reclaim. This lower diagram at the bottom of figure A compares the nourishment profile and the adjusted profile. The red zone shows the portion of the nourishment profile that shifted onshore and offshore. The green zone shows the net buildup of the beach in the underwater area following nourishment and natural adjustments. So that bottom one kind of takes into account the two. Can you go to the next one? This is 3 before and after pictures of, obviously this is Seagull. I think this is probably a statewide known picture now. When we were at North Carolina Beach and Inlet Waterways, this picture was used a lot for reference. Up at the top, that shows, let's see if I can, that shows Seagull before the nourishment project. That shows 23rd of February 2011 before nourishment. As you can see, clearly there's no north and south movement oceanward of those houses. The middle picture shows this was taken September 2nd, 2011. This is after nourishment and after Hurricane Irene. You can see that the beach is built up, but what you also notice is that because these houses were there, elevation was affected. We weren't able to go as far with the project, so that it created this ponding area. After one of the nor'easters, this pond reached much further to the north, and Dr. Khanna kept telling me to be patient, that it would fill in. I at times did not. I desperately wanted to believe him that that was the case, and so far everything he has said has been correct. And once again, you can see down here, 21st of November, that clearly that pond, the effects of that sand that we showed you, that 48% is feeding the visible beach. It's raised the elevation. It's filled in that pond to the point where I don't believe that pond will exist again. And you can see a pretty big difference in width between early fall and late fall with the widening of the beach. Not only the widening, but also the increased elevation. And hopefully this, Mayor, will explain, this next graph will explain a little bit better detail your question. This shows at Not that one. Go back. You were right. C. There you go. Perfect. If you go to the, can you do that again? One more time. I know I'm too young to be this old, but I can't hardly see. This will show the different cross sections of the beach going from. I'm sorry. That's okay. This shows up to 6 foot, that 348,000 cubic yards. And I don't know this exactly, but I believe the berm that we put in place several years back was about the size of it was about 350 cubic yards. So that's what would essentially be that berm. This is what's in place there. If you go to a 6 foot to 0 foot, the mean sea level, there's 1.5 million cubic yards. And if you go out to wading depth or visible beach, there's another 495. Now, from this line, that area forward, that's the visible beach. That's 52% of the beach, or about 2.4 million cubic yards of what was placed. And the same thing goes for this underwater area here. The 48% to a negative 12 to 6 feet is made up of 842. It grows, it gets to 6 foot to 12 foot, another 1.4 million. But then if you went to 19 and beyond, that number would come back down. And then the last slide I want to show you as part of this report. Wait a minute, you had it, the bottom one of that page. That's it, perfect. The pink color, I guess that's pink or peach, I don't know. That's what Great Lakes placed. CSC back in last month, this is what they've confirmed. So this gives you the before and the after perspective. Up around that 6 feet area, it's grown. But I told you it went from 70% visible to about 52% visible. So this is that's that 18 to 20% loss of the visible beach here. And then you can see we have more. Again, this will show you this is what they placed, and we have more than what they placed from 12 foot. So that, I don't have any questions about how that was presented. Again, you have this memo and this information. It will be on the website, and we'll try and answer any questions now and in the future. What we're going to do, if you'll go to those pictures that Roberta took, what we're going to do from this point going forward, because I think folks that can't get out to the beach regularly, folks that may have property here but don't live here, what we're going to do is post to the website the conditions of the beach. Roberta has taken pictures of 5 different areas of the nourishment project area, and we'll show you the perspective monthly. November, December, January, February, we'll take pictures from the exact same location so folks can kind of look and compare. I know it's not as good as doing it more frequently, but hopefully that'll, it'll show some comparison about how the beach is holding up and maintaining. Any
questions for Mr. Ogg? That's about as good a report as you could get in terms of the sand still being where you left it.
I would like to bring the board briefly up to date about our progress with cleaning up and getting the FEMA reimbursement, and also recovering from Hurricane Irene. To recap and bring you back up to speed on the building damage, we told you soon after Irene that we had one home that was destroyed, the Stinson Ranch, which I believe is still in the CAMA review. The major CAMA application has been submitted and under review for putting that house back. We had 7 were posted as condemned. Of those 7, 2 have been brought into compliance and 5 are still posted. And we've been in communication with owners or agents of all 5 of those. Now, presently, as of, on September the 16th, we sent 389 certified letters and through certified mail and regular mail, informing property owners of possible flood damage. Of the 389, 277 we've heard from, they've responded back. Of the 277, 155 have had site visits by our staff, and 122 have not yet scheduled site visits. I got to take just a moment to thank Elizabeth, the planning staff, and especially Ronnie and Buddha for all the hard work that they've continued to put in and getting caught up in making the field contacts. Of the 155 site visits, 115 had no flood damage. Now, the reason the letter was sent was because some of these homes were in areas where flood damage was likely, probable, but until an actual site inspection that took place inside the house, we didn't know for sure. Excuse me. 115 had no flood damage and have been removed from the list, and 40 were found to have some damage, of which approximately half have applied or have been issued some type of permit. And of those 122 pending, 27 have applied and been issued some type of permit. So we're still waiting to hear from about 122. That'll give you up to the building damage. Now, as far as the town recovery, I believe I reported back in the middle of October that we thought we would be making a claim for about $377,000, and it appears that today, with just about all the project worksheets being submitted, we're going to be very close to that number being exactly right. We have submitted claims for emergency measures of $46,000, and that's for preparation purposes. In preparation, we've got some turnout gear that has been contaminated and will need to be replaced. You approved in a budget adjustment today the repairs. It's going to be a total replacement for Town Hall and Station 16. Those two come to about $60,000 for request reimbursement. We're still waiting on 2 invoices from our monitoring contractor. October and November invoices need to be reconciled and submitted before we can make the final determination on how much debris removal has cost us. But without those 2 invoices, it's $150,134 for debris removal, and we anticipate about another $25,000 based on the September invoice for monitoring. At the end of Roanoke Way, we have a water line that we still need to get replaced. Dave Clark's working on getting that done. There was a water line that was washed out and eroded. We're going to have to go back through almost a full-blown process with state water because we're relocating a water line. No one's not receiving any service. This is a line that looped around one of the from Old Nags Head Cove over to the village. Folks are still getting water service. We run the risk of, depending on if there was a break in that line, if it was north of 6 houses, those 6 houses may be without water. If we can get this line looped back in, then there'll be some backup for those. The estuarian access repair, what I'd like to ask the board for, we've got to repair Jockey's Ridge Beach Soundside access. We've got to repair the causeway, the estuarian side on the south side of the causeway, and there's some repair work that's going to have to be done at the Harvey Sound Beach access or Soundside access and the Danube access. I'd like to ask the board for Dave has gotten 3 estimates, 3 quotes from contractors to do this work, but these are things, regardless of what FEMA does, all this has to be done. We'd prefer to try and go ahead and get this work done and not wait for FEMA's response. So I'd like to ask the board if we could enter into a contract not to exceed $58,000 for the repair of all of those things, all those accesses that I just mentioned. The money is in contingency, although if you approve this, that's just about going to wipe out what we have remaining in the contingency between the roof repairs and these beach accesses.
Have we seen the estimates yet?
No, you have not.
Okay.
But they're under the amount required for bids. We did go out and get 3 informal bids, and the lowest being for all of this work to be $58,000.
Who's the low bidder?
Earth Saver. And Dave, I don't know if you can add, if there's anything else to add to this. We can wait and come back in January.
I'd like to see the scope
okay.
of the work in writing. I mean, rather than hearing it. If you've got some documentation that
Okay.
will help us.
We did meet yesterday with FEMA and gave her all the information. She asked a lot of questions, dimensions, and I gave her the detailed bid sheets that we had used to solicit costs on all 3 sites, and she's in the process of preparing the project worksheet for that project. So, I mean, we've given FEMA all the information so they can develop the project worksheet on that replacement or repair of all 3 of those sites. So that's now in FEMA's hands, but she didn't see that there would be any problem. I gave her a copy of the bid tabulation so she knows what the 3 different bidders bid on each of the sites. The only question we're looking at right now is we kind of bid them as a project. On 2 of them, 1 bidder was lower, but on the 3rd one of the other bidders was lower, and we're trying to find out if he only gets 1 instead of 3, is his bid going to go up? Because sometimes there's economies of scale involved in bidding a larger project versus a smaller project. If that were the case, then we would end up probably contracting with 1 firm to do all 3, and that would be the firm that gave us the lowest cumulative bid.
What we had was $58,600 from Earth Saver, $61,590 from Carolina Marine Structures, and $99,000 from Du Bois. But I don't want to get it too far ahead of myself. I'm anxious to get these repairs done, but I think we can wait another month and bring it back and maybe start the work at the first of the year. So we'll bring it back for your review on a January agenda.
So it's going to be hard to start the first of the year.
Well, shortly after the first of the year.
Okay. And you'll bring back everything. Now,
Yes.
Roof repairs, can you give me some idea on the scope of roof repairs?
I think I'm asked Dave or Chief Sort to speak about Station 16, but I think, we're looking at a 13, 14-year-old roof on Town Hall. There is some, I don't know that FEMA's going to pay for the full replacement because I think there's accumulated damage that's occurred. They'll pay for a portion of it. We did get quotes for that as well. That's been through your process and your review. But if you go out and you look, you'll see that a tremendous amount of, you don't even have to look up. You can see the shingles, some of the shingles in the parking lot. But this is to replace, this would be a full replacement of about $38,000, I think, for replacement of the roof.
Roughly $40,000. One of the requirements of this roof, and it's interesting that the same lady who we met with yesterday, her husband has experience as a roofer, and he took a look at the roof. He happened to be down here, and he said that there was no way that roof could be repaired, that there was so much damage to it that there'd be no way to match the shingles, that it would require a whole new roof from the shingles and the felt back up again. So that's what the project worksheet reflects. But one of the requirements is that these shingles be 130 miles per hour resistant, which the ones that were on there before were not. And so that will be a requirement. And that was something that all of those who quoted on it were required to quote, was 130 mile an hour resistant shingles.
And are we I'm sorry, this is Town Hall? Or
Town Hall, yes.
13 or 14 years is not a long time for a roof. I mean, in terms of roof lifespans, is it? I mean,
Well,
should we expect to only get 13, 14 years out of our roof shingles?
I think it's due to a combination of factors, one of which is the severity of the weather that we have. But at the end of that 13 or 14 year period, we had a hurricane. And as a result of that, I mean, under normal wear and tear, you would expect a roof to last longer. Yes, you would. But when you throw in the mix of nor'easters and hurricanes that we get, that's pretty hard on any type of roof system. And that's a factor that they took into consideration rather than just funding a repair, that they said, yes, we understand that there's no way that roof could be repaired. It needs to have a whole new roof.
And this is just my ignorance, but why is this a FEMA issue as opposed to do we have wind and hail coverage? Seems like roofs would be under wind and hail as opposed to FEMA. But again, I'm ignorant. So-
Well, and unfortunately, our insurance expert has departed for Florida. But you know, one of the issues that FEMA does look at is your insurance policies, and they determine, in other words, what public assistance is intended to do is cover quote unquote uninsured losses. And so this project worksheet that's been written up takes into account, and it may well be that because of the amount of deductible that the town has, and as I understand, our deductible on town hall is pretty high because it's based upon not only the value of the building, but the value of the contents. And if it's a certain percentage of the total value, that means that the town would have to pay out of pocket for this entire new roof. And FEMA looks at that, and they determine that if you suffer an uninsured loss or a loss that your insurance policy doesn't cover because the loss doesn't rise to the level of your deductible, then public assistance will cover that cost. So it's a matter of the insurance policy, how it's written, but if your deductible would make it such that you'd have to pay the full price of that because, you know, if your deductible is $100,000 and you have a $40,000 loss, then obviously that's not covered by your policy, by the way it's written.
The deductible is $83,000.
Okay.
Repair is about $40,000, so the
Right.
deductible is more than twice.
So it is, in effect, what FEMA considers, even though we have insurance, is considered as an uninsured loss.
And we regardless, we'd be asking we're not replacing this roof for anything to do with FEMA. We need to replace this roof regardless of any FEMA. And that's the case with everything that we do. There's no given, no guarantee. We may not get a penny. But nevertheless, we still need to repair and replace that roof.
I guess I would just certainly expect that we would get more than 15 years out of a roof.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the 130 mile an hour shakes, but
I don't know how much of a difference it makes. The ones that are there are 120, and the ones that are being put on are going to be 130. So.
Thank you.
And then finally on this, the relocation of the Woods Road there, almost to the very end of the road. We're still working. We've got the approval from Clean Water Management Trust Fund to relocate that road, and that's not going to be a huge expense. Time's not of the essence there. It's something that we're going to eventually have to do, but that's the only other remaining undone.
And we needed their permission
Because the land was purchased with donations or funding through Clean Water Management Trust Fund.
the land to the south there.
It's managed, because it's in their property, it's in that area that was purchased, although it's in the Nature Conservancy and owned and operated or maintained by the Nature Conservancy, owned by the town. It's money that they gave us to purchase the land. So it takes some of their blessing, which they've given.
Thank
you. One of the things that I'd like to get some direction from the board and ask that I'd like to, this is not me trying to so much fix something that's broken, but to bring a approved policy that the town staff can use in dealing with residential trash carts. I think some of the board, and I know that town staff has received an increase in calls about cans that are coming to the end of their life cycle. There's been quite a few, either wheels coming off or lids, but mainly it's the bodies that have cracked. What our unwritten practice has been, and I'd like to be able to come back with a policy that be approved, be it a board policy, an admin policy, or whatever you feel like the correct action to take is. What the practice has been is that if the can is less than 10 years old, we replace it at no cost to the customer. If it's older, if it's greater than 10 years old, then the customer is paying for the replacement of that can. We have replaced wheels and lids at no cost, without any determination based on how old the can is. We do that. Ricky, I think, constantly when he's on the road, he's got those parts in his truck, and when he can and time allows, and he sees one that needs repair, he'll stop and fix it. The owner may not even know that they had a broken wheel, but we'll go ahead and replace that. But the question, I think, is who owns the can? Does the town own the can, or does the customer, does the resident own the can? When anybody builds a new house for new building permits, planning will determine based on the number of bedrooms how many carts that house needs, and they're paid for at that time. The question, the direction that I need to be able to hopefully get from the board is this practice approved by the board? Is this practice, are you okay with how we've been doing this? The question that we get is that if the can is in perfectly good condition based on the customer's assessment of that can. Now the cans, obviously they're plastic, they'll break down through the winter and the summer months. They're not gonna last forever. We know eventually they're gonna pop. If it cracks at no fault of anybody's, just wear and tear, does that residential homeowner, property owner pay for the replacement of that can? Again, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but this has been an issue that's coming up. We've had some faulty cans, some faulty carts, but from what I'm told, all of those have been under warranty. We've gotten all those replaced, and they're out of our system. Those are the ones we've replaced those. But I think what we see is in the not this past fiscal year, but the two before that, we were replacing about 100 cans at no cost. It cost us about $51 a can, so that's about a $5,000 expenditure. We probably spend another $5,000 in those 2 years for the replacement parts. Already this fiscal year, we've already met in the first 6 months what we typically spend in replacing parts and pieces. We've already spent about $5,000, and we're on track to spend twice what we normally do. So I don't know if that means that we're coming to the end of, we're going to have it's a cyclical thing that this is going to be continuing to be a problem, that we're going to have carts popping and wheels falling off. But I just wanted to make sure, I think we need a written policy. I think staff needs to be able to say, we're not just making this up. Here it is, this is what we do. But I think it needs, because it has gotten to you all, and trash is, you got to pick up the trash. That's one of the things you probably hear the most about, satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So some of you have had some input. I don't know if Ralph or Dave can have anything more to add to this, but I think it's time for us to look at our practice and make sure you're okay with it.
2 questions, I guess. Why the difference between before 10 years and after 10 years? And if the town bought the first cans,
No, the owner bought the first.
even right at the very start of the system?
If you build a house, well, at the very start of the system, they were given.
Yeah.
But if I were to build a house in Nags Head today, I would pay for the can.
So I got my 2 cans for free. Is there a reason why I shouldn't replace those if we had the old trash cans, I would have replaced my old trash cans when they got holes in them. Why is it the town's responsibility and not the individual's responsibility? I guess that's my question.
That's the question that
That's
we most
exactly how I
often we
feel
get.
about it, too. I've already told that to the manager. You need a new trash can, you gotta pay for it.
I have a question. Since the complaints that I get, they all seem to be breaking at the same spot. Where the arms come and wrap it, they're cracking. Is that a problem with the quality of can that we're buying?
I don't believe so. It is. I don't know why 10 would be a magic number, but I think in a shorter period of time, if the can's over 10 years old, I think that's going to happen eventually, and that's exactly where it'll happen. It could look today to be brand new, but tomorrow it could pop because of the wear and tear.
And I guess my question is, are we buying a different quality can? Because I've got a black can from the county that's been there since they started the system, and it's never cracked, it's never been replaced. Are we buying a cheaper grade of can?
We are about to make I don't believe that we are. We're about to make a purchase, and through this process and evaluating what we're doing, we're going to make sure that that's not the case. We have had those pieces and parts have been not purchased from the same company. We've got a mix of different bodies in inventory, but we're going to fix that. We're going to make sure we're getting a better quality can. But I think my question, the direction I'm looking for is, do we want to continue after 10 years? They pay for it, or do we want to change that practice?
I think we have two different cans in the town.
We do.
I mean, I personally have two different ones, and the older, more muted green one is breaking down, and it is cracking exactly where the arms are, and there's duct tape and all of those kinds of things around the cans. So it probably is maybe a different quality, and the fact that it's older and the elements, you know, with the change in temperature from winter to summer, I mean, it's going to affect the quality of the plastic. But, you know, I appreciate that I got one to start with, that the town purchased that, but I think we need a policy, and I know that, you know, in Kill Devil Hills, I haven't had to do this recently, but, you know, the lid falls off, you have to pay for the new lid. You pay for all of the parts of the can, and if your can blows away in a hurricane, never to be seen again, it's a couple $100. So I think it's reasonable to expect that after the useful life, you should be expected to pay for your own can, and I think a policy would certainly assist staff, and everybody's treated exactly the same.
And I don't have an issue with doing the repairs, because I think the repairs, to slip a new top or pop a new wheel on, is a relatively simple process. But I do think that buying the cans are the owner's responsibilities of where I end up. But I'm open.
I don't disagree with that. I just want to make sure we're buying a good quality can as we buy, and not buy, because I've seen difference in quality based on the ones we bought every time.
We'll fix that. What Ralph just told me is that the reason for the 10 years is because that's what the manufacturer will warranty them for. So if we can get it replaced.
And I'm glad to know we have green, because I would say they all went north.
And that may be because, as you know, Commissioner, my cans are black. I don't have the same kind of problems either. So I don't know if the cans that are black hold up better, maybe because of the UVA rays versus the green that I'm looking into. And then, of course, you know, we didn't want black cans, so that's why we have green. And so I don't know if that's the reasoning why, but we haven't given away a can. 3 years ago, we gave away 100. In the last 2 years, we haven't given any away. We've had 69 cans break, and every can that was broken was over 10 years old.
The ones that were under 10 years old, though, you got replaced under warranty, so there was no actual cost.
Right. That was during that we had gotten a batch of bad cans, but they're all gone. They're done. They're out of the system. We took them out. What was left over, we took them out. The problem we're seeing now, though, is that the cans that are over 10 years old, that like wheels and stuff are breaking off them. On the beach, and it's mainly on the beach road. On the west side, we don't have that problem. I don't think the cans don't get the abuse on the west side as they do on the beach road. I think, you know, the cans of stuff full, they're heavier, picking them up, setting them back down and stuff like that does wear and tear on the wheels, and so we don't have the problem we do on this. We've gone to a different type of wheel and axle. We're putting back the old wheels, which none of the companies even sell anymore. We have to buy from a different company that has the holes through them that you can just slip them on the axle, put some cotter pins in them. They seem to last a whole lot better. It is an easy fix, but it is getting expensive. In the last couple of years, we've spent about $4,500. We've already spent $4,500 already up to this point, and we probably we're going to be putting in another order for another $2,000 or $3,000 worth of parts to continue to fix these carts. So, I mean, that's the problem that we're having right now. Any new carts we get, we will outfit them with these other type of wheels. And it's a lot easier on us. We have so many different carts out there, so many different wheels. People come in and say, can I get a wheel? And we can't give them a wheel because we really don't know what kind of cart they have. So this would help it become more uniform too, that we could just say, here's a wheel. Because a lot of them just say, hey, if I had a wheel with a cotter pin, I'll just put the cotter pin in and fix it myself. but we can't do that.
Your new carts are coming with a different kind of wheel? Or are you
Right.
saying you're gonna switch out the wheels on the new carts?
Yes. 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 We are gonna switch out the wheels on the new cars
Why can't you just buy?
because the manufacturers don't make them that way. They don't make those wheels anymore. They make the ones that are snapped on. And what the problem we're finding, it snaps on the axle, it has a spring that holds a pin. Well, the spring rusts out and the wheels fall off. But it's it's easier and more efficient to assemble those cans. So basically everybody really didn't want that type of wheel anymore. So now they just make this one, that the manufacturer just makes this one type of wheel and axle. Actually, all the cart companies do. But for our application, it doesn't work very well.
Sounds like there's a better need for a better trash can design.
I think if they would just go back, again, if they would just go back to the axles that just had the holes in them and put the cotter pins in, that would be the fix. And like I said, we don't have this problem on the west side. You know, normally everybody puts their carts in the same spot. You go, you pick it up, everything's fine. On the beach road, it's just a little bit different dynamic that we're dealing with, and we're saying that the biggest problem is on the beach road.
What's the pleasure of the board? What do y'all want to do?
I think what I heard you say was make sure we're buying the best we can. It sounds like you're okay with charging after 10 years, and we continue to replace wheels and lids as needed.
Now, under 10 years?
Under 10 years.
I heard Ralph say we were under warranty, but was that a bad batch of cans? So anything in the future would not be under warranty? Any can is under warranty for less than 10 years?
Correct.
Okay.
And if that's what I'm hearing, we'll get that in a written and bring it back for you, before you.
Any objections to that?
No, I just have a question. How do you know they're less than 10 years old, just from looking at them?
There's an
The
inventory serial number.
Okay.
I know my mother-in-law has that duct tape wrapped around it. I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
Okay, thank you. And the only other thing I wanted to thank Carolyn. She's, hopefully you've noticed a much easier navigation of your board agenda today. You saw how many packets she put together in the annual report. I think she wants to make sure that this paperless works, so I thank her for doing that. And then also on behalf of the town staff, just want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a happy holidays. Thank you.
I think the board would wish the same right back to the staff. Elizabeth, do you have the LED and plasma piece that we discussed earlier?
We've written something up in the interim. Carolyn's going to hand it to Lisa, and we'll show it up here.
If that's okay with the board, if we'll go ahead and address that one now to come back to us.
So what you've seen here is the ordinance that came before you. This is the section of prohibited signs. And there on paragraph C, which was the paragraph that the mayor cited earlier, we've added no sign, business sign. We've added LED, LCD, or plasma signs to project imagery or moving imagery, or outdoor advertising structure, et cetera. The rest of that business, that paragraph stays the same. Then if, Lisa, if you would scan down to the definition below, or maybe on the next page, I've taken out the digital sign and included LED, LCD, or plasma signs as what we're defining there, meaning any sign featuring moving images created by incandescent LCD, plasma, LED, or projected images for any purposes other than traffic control devices. And hopefully this will get at allowing sort of static digital signs, but prohibiting LED, plasma screen, LCD, or moving types of images. And again, we can tweak this some more if you'd like, or we can always kick it back to the planning board or a committee if you'd like.
But this, my understanding is this would give us some protection against
Correct.
those newer types of signs.
Correct.
What's the pleasure of the board? Yes, ma'am, please.
Elizabeth, would this allow what you referred to earlier, such as pictures, to be on a sign?
It would not.
Okay.
I mean, because it says any sign featuring movie images created, well,
It says
actually,
movie.
slide it up again, Lisa. We have in the definition moving, the word moving, but if you go back to that paragraph D, we talk about it as,
Imagery or moving imagery, so.
or moving imagery.
All right.
Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to adopt as amended and presented by the planning director.
I'll second that. Further discussion? Okay, everybody clear on the changes to C and the definition? Elizabeth, anything else? Sorry?
Just to remind you, we'll also have to adopt a statement of consistency, which is included, and the statement of consistency should not have to change.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. The motion passes 3-1. And,
Motion to adopt the consistency statement.
and second, further discussion on consistency? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you for bringing that back to us. Board of Commissioners agenda. Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, the only thing I have, Mayor, is that time again that we dig down deep in our hearts and wallets and recognize employees for their service with the annual employee market adjustment. And would like to see us go ahead and again this year and give them the. I'd like to see it be $100 apiece. Cost us $10,000. It has in the past. I don't know what it was last year.
And a fixed amount of $100 apiece, not a percentage piece.
Correct.
Okay. Sir, Mr. Ogburn?
Would it be possible to consider a $100 gift card? Could save some time, makes it easier to process, and it also saves, it's a true $100. It doesn't affect FICA, doesn't affect
Taxes don't get
retirement.
taken out?
Yeah. It's a flat,
Yes, absolutely, as far as I'm concerned.
And it would be a generic card?
it'd be a generic card. It could be used anywhere.
Would you like to make that in form of a motion? Mayor Pro Tem?
So move.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously.
The only other thing I have, Mayor, is I'm not real sure about the January meeting. I would look at I will be out of town on January 4th for the January meeting. I will be on my cruise, on my retirement cruise.
We wish you well.
What a great time for a cruise.
We'll miss you. Anything else, sir?
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Walters?
I have a couple of items. We currently meet at 7:30 during our mid-month meeting, and we have the latest meeting time in Dare County. They range from 6 o'clock to 7 p.m. And from talking with some residents, including professionals such as architects, engineers, attorneys, I'd like to suggest that we consider holding our meetings perhaps at 6 instead of 7:30. I think it provides a better opportunity for our residents to attend and perhaps also professionals to attend as they come straight from work. And it might also be easier for our staff to attend. So I'd like to just throw that out there for consideration.
Okay. And that's starting at 6 o'clock instead of 7:30
7:30,
on our mid-month meeting?
Is that year-round for those of us that work in the summertime?
Well, I would say year-round, for consistency's sake, but
Comments?
I haven't heard that one. That's something new again. Because I have not heard that complaint about the times of the meetings. Some people have said I thought it was 7, not 7:30.
Can we have that on our, can we have it on our retreat agenda for full discussion?
sure.
Sure. No, that'd be fine. Can somebody take care of that besides me?
And I have one other item. Regarding our town ordinances, in the last few months, the planning board and this board have struggled with some of our ordinances. Some conflict with each other, as we experienced during the discussion of like cluster homes and our attempts to preserve some historic home. And I think a lot of them were written during a time of rapid development, and a lot of them were written to control or restrict growth. And we're not really experiencing that anymore. What we're experiencing now is redevelopment, and probably will be, for the foreseeable future. And I think that perhaps with the downturn in the economy, our staff has more time to look at these items, and I've spoken with Elizabeth Teague and our manager regarding this, and Elizabeth says there is a service that can assist with this process. They look at our ordinances objectively to determine where there are conflicts, and that sort of begins the overall process. Of course, they don't do that for free. There's a fee for that, and with your permission, I'd like to ask Elizabeth to maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you for bringing this up. I think at any point, it is always a good time to re-examine your ordinances and to make sure that your regulations are keeping up with your town goals. At this point in time, when Cliff, Susie, and I had a conversation, it struck me that it's a particularly strategic time for this town to be looking at our ordinances. As Susie mentioned, the economy has shifted, and we're looking at a different type of development pressure. We're also looking at a situation, as Mr. Romali noted, that we have a lot of nonconformities and a lot of changes occurring on our ordinance or to our ordinance on a regular basis. So that always raises the question in my mind if the ordinance and the regulations are keeping up with the times. The other couple of things I'll just mention is that in 2005, our state legislature actually updated the authorizing legislation for town planning. And it's certainly a good time for us to look at our existing ordinance and make sure we're up to date with all the state statutes, wireless and telecommunications being a perfect example of that. Additionally, we have had some struggles with the subdivision ordinance and how it relates to our zoning ordinance. The subdivision ordinance was written prior to a lot of the zoning rules that we have. So there must be an easier way for us to facilitate people handling subdivisions or recombinations of property in a way that's consistent with the processes that we've had set up in our zoning ordinance. For example, you held a variance hearing on a subdivision not too long ago, and now that same project is going to have to go back through the Board of Adjustment. And so I would feel more comfortable in working with subdivision and zoning applications if we could create more consistency and procedural simplicity in how we handle those. So those are a couple of things that we've seen. Definition issues have come up. We have definitions scattered about the ordinance. It'd be nice to be able to put those in a comprehensive definitions section, and also to make sure our definitions are consistent with what the state is defining, as well as CAMA, you know, and some of the other regulatory agencies that we deal with. We've had some struggle, for example, with the term public trust beach, because we've defined it in a couple of different ways, and a little bit differently from CAMA. Essentially, it's the same, but some of the wording was a little different. So there are certainly some things like that we can address. That said, it's a good opportunity for us to take a larger step back and make sure that we are providing good customer service through our regulations and our procedures to handle the current context. There are several firms out there that provide this service, and what I would foresee us doing is trying to create some kind of request for qualifications or request for proposals process, trying to look forward and budget some money in the next fiscal year to hire somebody, and to consider that usually an update of your local ordinance takes a considerable amount of time. You want to include public input. You have to work very closely with your planning board and staff, and not just planning staff. You want to make sure that what you're doing is consistent with emergency services, fire and police, public works. Planning really touches everything, so we want to make sure that when we do this, we're being comprehensive about it. We did a similar process where I came from in Black Mountain. It took about 3.5 years for us to do. Staff was heavily involved, but we also hired a consultant to help us. We worked very closely with our town attorneys, so we'd want to make sure that as things were recommended, there was some built-in time and budget for attorney review. And to create kind of a procedure, just knowing that this is going to be a long process that we'd invest in, but to help our town sort of position itself to move forward in our current context, and to meet some of the emerging issues that have come up, such as signage, parking, nonconformities. There are a lot out there that I think it is a good time to address. I'm happy to answer
Seems like the
questions.
first step would be initiating a request for a proposal. Would that be correct?
Yeah, we could
Kind of
start putting
scope
something
of the work.
together and maybe bring you back a scope, because we'd want to make sure before we put anything out there that it's consistent with what you want to see happen, and that there's a clear, common set of expectations for the work that we're about to do. I will warn you sometimes as you get into major ordinance updates that it becomes sort of an evolving process. You get into it and you realize, oh, well, we also need to look at this part of the ordinance. And you know, you may start with zoning and subdivisions, and you will find you might morph into some other areas of the ordinance. So it is important to create some flexibility in there, and to know that this might be a process that changes and grows as you move forward, which you don't want to do it that too much, but sometimes that's a necessary evil in being comprehensive. And a particular issue that we're finding now is with nuisances. You know, how do you define nuisance? And the relation of nuisance to zoning versus building types of nuisances, and how we enforce those. So that's just an example. So I would suggest maybe we start with a scope of work. Keep in mind that we'd want to be flexible about that as we move forward. And then we could get you maybe some preliminary cost estimates to move that through the budget process. And at the time that we have a budget that this community feels like we can handle for this work, then we would do an RFQ when we sort of know what we've got to work with. That's what I would suggest.
Board consensus, is that?
How many of these agencies are out there, or companies are out there to do this?
There are a lot.
I mean, do we have to put out a RFP for it? I mean,
I would recommend that. You know, there is a benefit in putting what you want to do out there and seeing who comes to the table. I think you'll find that in North Carolina particularly, and in coastal regions, there are some firms out there with a specific expertise in this, and they often have ordinances that they've worked on that have been vetted in other situations. So rather than starting from scratch, you'd be bringing in a set of expertise that's worked in other places in North Carolina and other CAMA communities in particular. In addition, it gives you a new set of eyes. I mean, we've all been working with this ordinance for a long time, many years, in the case of our attorneys, and it is always beneficial to have people who have worked in other locations come in and look at your ordinance and think about what's working and what's worked well in other places and what's been a problem in other places, and what might work here. So it brings a whole nother layer of expertise to the table. I was at the North Carolina Planning Conference not too long ago, and there were 4 firms that I talked to because they had sort of displays out there and got to see samples of ordinances they had updated or developed for other communities. And there's an impressive body of work out there by some of the private sector consultants in planning zoning.
Yeah, I like the idea a lot, but it's, again, this might be something to talk about in retreat too.
Good topic for retreat, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time that can be spent on it. I think it is excellent to have a new set of eyes come in. I will tell you there are a lot of communities in North Carolina that have looked to Nags Head. They've modeled their ordinances on ours a lot of times because we've been fairly forward-thinking.
You guys have been out front on a lot, and it's great. And so keep it up. Stay out there.
Yes, ma'am. We'll try with
All right.
good new leadership.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, I think it might help also as we look forward with updating our land use plan and just, planning ahead as far as what we want our town to.
Good step into comprehensive planning.
Yes, good step.
Thank you.
Only a couple things. One is that CRC will be meeting in Nags Head in February at Jeanette's Pier. The 8th and the 9th be the first trip per se out for a while. And the other is we have a chance to also host or have come here the NC Shore and Beach Preservation. That depends on whether we qualify with the prerequisite number of sponsors. So just be thinking about that as you talk to your other organizations. That has a chance to have a good financial impact on the town.
We do have, excuse me for interrupting, we do have Jeanette's Pier confirmed for that site as well.
We just have to have a certain number of sponsorships for the different things. So we've got a lot of work to do if that is to occur in the spring. And both of those will be coming at a time of year when there's not a lot going on, so it has a chance to have a spending sales tax impact in the town as well by bringing in lots of people. That's it.
Thank you. I did want to say that the Community Watch luncheon is December 14th. I think I've got that correct.
Yes.
And wanted to see if we could start the planning for scheduling a joint Board of Commissioners and Planning Board meeting.
Okay.
And again, maybe sometime in that January timeframe, so that we benefit from the retreat discussions as well. And that was all I had. I think we had a request from Mr. Leidy to enter a closed session to discuss the Sansoda litigation, to bring us up to speed on that litigation. That is GS 143-318.11A3. And I'll make a motion that we go into a closed session for that purpose. Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. We're going to recess to a closed session for advice from counsel. And we're coming out of a brief closed session. I'm going to ask our attorney, John Leidy, to report out from that session.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the board did confer with the board's attorneys regarding the Sansoda litigation. No action was taken.
Thank you, sir. Is there any further business to come before the board at this meeting? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, sir.
And remember, we have the manager's town light,
Christmas decorating
Christmas
contest.
decoration contest. Yeah, we didn't talk about that. What happened? We have a town-wide Christmas, go ahead.
Residential and commercial decorating contest. The applications are due in 2 weeks from Friday.
16th.
The 16th would be 1 week.
1 week from Friday, and judging is the following Monday. Applications are on the town website.
And people already know about it because they're going all out.
Christmas lights are expensive, is what I'm learning.
Well, like the Dollar Tree sold out.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. We're adjourned.